big boys, because when you arrived there, these men were prefects. So I knew him from the grammar school days. So it's good to have him here. And so, we learn a lot of things from him tonight. I know his father, because his father used to bring grapefruits down at the citrus packing plant down in Portersville, close to you. You know what they used to call that place? But they used to your father used to work there,
Packing shed, man.
Packing shed.
Packing shed. I suspect you forgot.
No, I just wanted to challenge you. Packing shed, that's right.
Challenge me?
Yeah, I wanted to find out. And I also knew the juicy factory, where his mother used to be working there as well. So he'll tell you.
I never knew. You talk about Gregory Shillingford.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about him. So that's just a brief introduction. But it's interesting. This week has been very interesting as well.
Yes.
In terms of, Dominica and what we've been hearing and seeing and listening to. So it's been very interesting.
Last week, Sunday, we had a very interesting program where in the program, we were able to speak on the history of all three political parties. Mm-hmm. And to include a fourth one, that was the UPP. Mm-hmm. Quite a number of people met me during the course of the week and complimented us for very much informative program to speak on the political parties. A number of people were not aware of the history of some of these political parties, when they were formed, who were their leaders, when they were in power, the things that they did. So we were able to build and on information that we knew of, and to really help in the mindset of people in terms of the political parties.
We are very lucky, because in the old days, you were only able to get involved in politics if you were a landowner.
Yes.
You had to have land.
Yes.
And not everybody.
As a matter of fact, prior to 1951, which was the year of adult suffrage, that's way back in 1951. And so we were able to speak of the development of 1955, and from 55, the establishment of the Labour Party, to the first election of 1957, when independent parties came together to form the government, and they called themselves that night the Dominica United Progressive Party, DUPP. We were to talk about that. And a lot of people tend to think that Dame Eugenia Charles was the first woman leader of a party who ran as a leader of a political party, but we were able to clear that up on Sunday, and to make people know that it was Shan Alfred's first.
And we're very lucky, because in fact, before it was only men allowed to vote. Women were not allowed.
Yeah, that's correct. Before, it was just men allowed, and that's where Gregory Shillingford comes in place. Men alone, and not just outside of men alone, that eventually it became men who had property. And if you didn't have property,
you could not
contest. You could not have been part of the electoral process.
Right, and we're still very lucky now, because just quickly, only recently 18-year-old were allowed to vote. Before, you had to be 21.
You had to be 21. That changed in 1975.
That's right.
So we were able to
very lucky.
So we were able to give the history along, as people who understand, the Lakou, and we have seen the graduation of the Lakou in all of this process, where the political parties before had to be launched in Lagon.
Right.
Every political party, if you did not go to Lagon, if you didn't pass through Lagon, you were at a political party.
Right. And tonight is very interesting. It's no offense to him, but it's very interesting to know that we have a relative of what we would call when you had left movements, would say he's a former member of the plantocracy, his clan.
No.
Not plantocracy.
His family is part
well,
of
yes, his clan. When you say the clan, we mean the family.
Yes.
So he's an origin of the plantocracy.
So is he fortunate?
Well, he'll tell you about it.
Yes.
Not me.
So tonight, we have Mr. Gregory Shillingford, sorry, He'll be sharing his story with us. We know Gregory as the former CEO of the DBMC and also Cricket West Indies. So he was a big man for two big organizations, one in Dominica and the other representing the West Indies.
Right. He was also curator.
Oh, yes.
Building
Yes.
pitches.
Come closer. So.
Yeah, he was building pitches as well.
and
so the man has done a lot of work.
That's correct, you know. And he was a sportsman. He'll tell us all about this. And he's a farmer now as we speak.
Farmer.
So let us say good evening to Gregory. Good evening to you, Gregory.
Hi, good evening, Cecil, and good evening, Hartley. It's a pleasure to be on your program and to be able to have a conversation with you, on your program, Lakou, program that is well listened to and very popular. It's a privilege for me to be, sharing this time with you.
Mm-hmm. And it's a privilege myself sharing this time with you. We heard so much about the Shillingfords, and we have second generation Shillingford or fifth generation Shillingford. He will tell us who themselves, did quite a lot for Dominica, politically and otherwise in terms of business. He will be able to share some of those things with us. So, Gregory, first thing, let me just find out from you, at what age did you come to Dominica?
I came to Dominica in 1950. I was exactly 1 year old. And previous to that, I was born in Port of Spain, Trinidad, where my father worked for the Shillingford business, lime business. As you may not know that the Shillingfords had lime businesses all through the Windward Islands. I mean, I'm sure of in St. Vincent and in Grenada and also in Trinidad. So my father lived in Trinidad and he was responsible for buying limes from farmers all over the country. And when I lived in Trinidad, I met a lot of people who knew my father and also farmers whose families my father had bought limes from. So I was born in Trinidad. He had lived in Trinidad for quite some time. He even played cricket for Maple Cricket Club, which was a very popular club at the time when he lived there. Cricketers may know of Alvin Cornell. Cornell was a very popular and skilled cricketer who played for Maple. So my father also played for Maple. His captain was the guy Andy Gantum, who played one test match for Cricket West Indies or West Indies at the time, and he scored 100 and never made the team again because they say he batted too slow. So my father lived in Trinidad and then he came back to Dominica to live. He bought an estate in Girodale called Durham Estate, and he told me that, because of when I was born, the first son with his wife, he asked his brother, Newton Shillingford, to find some land for him, and Newton found land at Girodale at Durham Estate, 150 acres, which he bought because he felt he had his first son with his wife and he wanted to have land, to be able to provide for me and my mother and subsequently for my brother Leslie. So that's how I came to Dominica.
A good beginning, First of all, let me ask you, who is your mother? And you can give us a background of your mom and a background of your dad.
My mother was named Eileen Rita Innis. Innis being a Bajan name. Her father was a Bajan. And she had My grandmother was Ethel Charles, and Innis had, my mother with Ethel Charles. So Ethel Charles had other children, one of them named Selwyn Charles, who also played cricket for Trinidad and also football for Trinidad. And that there was another, my mother had a sister, Jean Charles. Before she retired, she was a PS in the government of Trinidad and Tobago.
So you're saying to us directly that your mom is Trinidadian?
Yes, she is Trinidadian. And she told me many stories about her life. She said at one time in the 30s, after the war, she had migrated the center to the U.S. for training in working in factories where they produce clothing, So she had trained to be a seamstress. And she said that she lived with her Uncle Phil, who was involved in the early days of Black Power in the U.S. in Harlem, on streets called 128th Street, that was in the middle of Harlem. And she had experiences of going to meetings of activists in Black Power, at the time. And she knew most of the activists in Harlem and other activists who came to Harlem. My father was born to Thomas Howard Shillingford. Thomas Howard Shillingford was brother to Albert Charles Shillingford. And both of them were allegedly the two Shillingfords who Dominicans believe came to Dominica, but in fact they were born in Dominica. And their parents, one of their parents was a Dangleben from Granby, right? And my great-grandmother's name was Felicity Dangleben, who had married a John Shillingford, who was a doctor. And they first lived at Pedita.
So that John Shillingford was not Dominican?
Yes, he was a Dominican, because the history of the Shillingfords originated in England, in the area of Oxfordshire. But the Shillingfords at the time aligned themselves with Mary Queen of Scots, who got into what you would call a civil war with William Cromwell. But Cromwell was powerful. I think he represented the Anglo-Saxon tribe or ancestry, and there was a civil war, and Cromwell was very powerful, and Mary Queen of Scots fled to Scotland. So Cromwell even followed her and her followers and supporters into Scotland. And then they made a decision, the Shillingfords and lots of others who supported Mary Queen of Scots, they made a decision to migrate to the U.S. and migrate to the West Indies. So there are records who show, and in fact, if you look up, records of births and deaths, you will see there are lots of Shillingfords in Pennsylvania, all of them being white people. So the rest of the Shillingfords, they first stopped off on their way from Scotland. They first stopped off in Jamaica, and there are records of that. And then they went to Barbados, because Barbados was like the headquarters for people going to the Eastern Caribbean. And in Barbados, there's a lot of databases belonging to the Mormons, the Latter-day Saints, which record all the Shillingfords who came off the various boats and settled in Barbados for quite some time, and then they have records of births and deaths of Shillingfords in Barbados, and then they had migration to Dominica. I don't know where else they went in the Windward Islands, but we know definitely they went to Dominica. So when they went to Dominica, they first went to Pedita, and so my grandfather.
So Pedita is the south of Dominica.
Yeah, Pedita is by Granby, just before Granby, right? On the left-hand side, across the river from Granby there. And, that estate was given by the family of my grandfather to the family of Pat Shillingford, Wilfred Shillingford, who was father of Henry Shillingford. So Henry frequently talks about Peditar, and sometimes they go there. I have even seen pictures where the Prime Minister and a lot of hikers, they have hiked through Peditar and met with people who are resident there and who do farming there.
Pump is one of the persons that live in that area.
That's right. So there were, I think there were about 3 or 4 brothers and 3 sisters. And, the 2 famous ones was Thomas Howard and Albert Charles. And they left Peditar, and Albert Charles settled in Roso and Newtown, and Thomas Howard went down the West Coast. But before that, there was a sister. But it's interesting that when you read the wills of the Shillingfords, you see that you see statements like, "I leave nothing for my 2 sons, Albert Charles and Thomas Howard, because they are very capable. They have lots of skills and competencies. So therefore, I leave 2 houses for my daughter Teresa." I forget her name, but one of his daughters, his last daughters, because he was unsure whether his last daughter, would be able to get a husband to take care of her. So he provided for her as by way of an eventuality if she did not marry somebody to take care of her. So that was the kind of thinking in these days. All right, so Thomas Howard went down the West Coast and he acquired land. He bought land from the various white landowners. And he himself was half white because his mother was a black woman, Felicity Dangleben. And of the Dangleben family, both in Roso and in the Grand Bay area and Petit Savan area. And, the Josephs who lived on Cock Street, their mother was a Dangleben. And she had a sister, a Dangleben, who also had a guest house in Barbados. A lot of Dominicans who used to have to go to Barbados for their visas, U.S. visas, frequently stayed over at her guest house in Barbados. So the families are very interconnected. And with regards to my grandfather, he set up shops from Lakou, in St. Joseph, in Battley, in Collyho, in Dubla. And he was what I would say a retailer. He would frequently go to New York and to Philadelphia to buy goods to furnish his shops. And on his last outing or his last travels, when he went to Philadelphia, when he came back, he died on his estate at Hobsole. Hobsole is in the back of Makushri. Right, that was a 400-acre estate, and I don't know what was his ailment, but he died there. And when he died, he still had goods in shipment, which came to Dominica after he died. So Will Shillingford, his son, and his sister, Mary Eliza Shillingford, were his executors. So Will had to clear all the goods that came in, from on the boats, when his father had already passed, and Will not being a Roso person. And I'll give you a story about Will. He then sold the goods that were cleared off the boats. He sold them to A.C. Shillingford, Albert Cavendish Shillingford. And the clothing, parts of the shipment he sold to the new store and the old. There was another store on Old Street. I forget the name. And Will became a silent partner to ACS. So that is what my grandfather did, and when he died, and even before he died, he used to have a house at Fort Lynn. Where Pallas used to live before he died. He and Pallas and his wife, Curtis Augustus, his mother is a Shillingford, or was a Shillingford. And that house had belonged to my grandfather, Thomas Howard. And when my grandfather was in Tong in Roso, all the Shillingfords from Roso would congregate there. They would play dominoes there. And I was told by way of history that my grandfather was most impressed with A.C. Shillingford. That's Albert Charles Shillingford. And to start off his business in trade and commerce, my grandfather gave him a property where Kevin Williams and Singwala have their office, and that used to be a building where E.R.I. Shillingford had a shop. He also gave him another piece of land, I think it was where Phoenix is, ACS, to start off his business. And, he was very impressed with him, and he wanted to invest in him as the flagship, Shillingford, who represented a flagship in business. So even the building where on Kennedy Avenue, where, Adams, I don't know if you remember where Mama Tiz used to live. Well, that belonged to my grandfather, and he gave it to Mama Tiz, at whatever time, because she was ACS mother, So my grandfather had properties both in Roso and down the coast. He had a lot of estates. Batterley was an estate, didn't belong to him, because he had leased Batterley Estate from the McIntyres, and he had also leased Grand Savannah from the government. I don't know if you all recall when there was a Calypsonian who had a song called Treyo Putut Mun Maji. You all recall that song?
Yes, this took from St. Joseph.
Yeah. Right. So that song had its basis that Dominica provided refuge to a lot of French people who were fleeing the government at the time from France. And they came to Dominica, but they needed to eat. So Grand Savannah was known to have a lot of potatoes, sweet potatoes, and also goats, right? And the song was based on that we killed a lot of goats to feed the French people at the time. So that's why the Calypsonian sold that song, Chueyo, Putut Mun Maje.
Oh, no, that one is not a Calypso. That one is that's written by Gordon Henderson.
Right.
Gordon Henderson, sorry.
Yes.
Gordon Henderson.
Yeah. So that speaks to, my grandfather's involvement in land at Batterley and at and Grand Savannah. He had land also in Syndicate.
We are going to come towards the whole concept of how your grandfather accumulated all of that land and so on. But how did your father, and as you said, your mother is Trinidadian, father is Dominican. Your father left to go to Trinidad and to deal with the issue of the industry of lime.
Right.
And he would have met your mother.
Yeah.
They got married.
Yeah.
And then returned to Dominica.
Yes.
Now, when they returned to Dominica, as you said, they bought over 150 acres of land in Girondel.
Yes.
Is that land still in the name of the Shillingfords?
Yes, that land at Girondel is named Durham Estate. And I still have the title for it in my father's name. My father left it in equal share for Leslie, my brother, and myself. But even before my father died, he started selling land. So quite a few people bought land. Is
that same land? I know that you have a family member living in Girodale.
Quite a few family members living in Girodale.
So would that land that you're speaking of is now being inherited by those members of your family?
No. The other members of the family had their origins in Newell, Shillingford, who bought land close to the school, right, just below this and opposite the school. That's where Newell bought land, and his son Curtis bought land close to the site where we have the flower show, right, and there may be some other Shillingfords also in thing, but Durham Estate didn't. Newell's family didn't have interest in Durham Estate, although Newell did work for my father as a supervisor. You know.
So I need to know, because I'm sure people might be asking that question. From your grandfather lineage, how many children he would have had with his wife?
Well, my grandfather was never married, you know. But he had many children. He had over 21 children, you know. And Hartley, I don't know if you remember, in Roso, there was a lady called Lorna Shillingford who lived in Fort Lynn.
Yes, I know Lorna.
Right? That was my father's sister. And, you know, so there was Howell, there was Stafford, there was Hughes, there was Phyllis, you know, there was Willinfred, then there was Slappy Shillingford's father was my father's brother, and there were many others, you know.
So you're saying that your grandfather had 21 children?
Yeah, they're about, or even more. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot.
21.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a lot.
And were they just in the Roso area? What part of Dominica?
No. Well, most of them lived down the coast, right? In Collyho, Jubla, Culibistry, right? Then there was my great-grandfather, his other son, Albert Charles, had children. What was his name? Pat Shillingford's father. He lived at Lakou, where the bank was. His name escapes me, but Pat Shillingford's, Wilfred Shillingford, all that group. They were the children, Howard Shillingford, E.R.I. Shillingford. They were the children of Albert Charles. And one of them was Howard Shillingford, who Mrs. Astafan, right? Hugo's mother was a Shillingford. And then you had out of Howard or out of Albert Charles, you had ACS, that is Albert Cavendish, whose children were...
You had Albert Cavendish and you had Albert Charles.
Yes, Albert Charles was Albert Cavendish's father.
Okay.
Right. You know, so they were the Roso Shillingfords. They had their origins from Roso. You also had some Shillingfords who lived in Newtown, right?
It's another side of your grandfather's children.
Great-grandfather's children.
Great-grand.
Yeah. You know, so those who lived in Roso were, you know, they were shop owners. Some of them in Newtown were blacksmiths. There's a record of Shillingfords being blacksmiths in Newtown. You know, but the majority of them were down the coast. Collyho, Jubla, and Culibistry.
Okay, I have a picture of Albert Cavendish Shillingford, died March 7th, 1948.
That's right.
At the age of 58.
That's right.
I happened to have gone to a funeral and I just decided to remove the tomb of all of the Shillingfords in one area in the Catholic Church cemetery.
Yeah.
So I have Albert, who died on the 7th of March 1938.
And
at
his,
the age of
his,
56.
death, his death was surrounded by a lot of controversy. He died in Pegua Bay. And you know Pegua Bay on the Atlantic coast there is very rough. And he went out swimming and a riptide pulled him under and he died. Right? And so I think he had land up in Pegua Bay there.
And I also have another one that says Isaac Newton Shillingford.
Right.
Died on the 20th of September 1970. Who's this one?
That is that is my father's brother. He lived at Reigate, right? And he was the father of Ivan Shillingford, right? And he had other children too. I don't remember the names right now. But
And then to the beloved memory of Howell Shillingford, died 11th October 1975.
that's right.
May his soul rest in peace.
That's right. Howell was my grandfather's, I believe, first, if not first, second child.
So
Right? Thomas Howard's second child. And he was born in Collyho. His mother was a Jean Baptiste in Collyho. Right?
and also in loving memory of Richard Howard Shillingford.
Right. Richard Howard was son of Albert Charles. Right? Brother, I think, to E.R.I. Shillingford and Mona Shillingford. Not Mona, Mrs. Eva Roll was a Shillingford. So Howard was her brother.
And what about Randolph Huxley Shillingford?
Right. Huxley also was son of Howard, I think.
So I happen to have gone to a funeral, and strange, all of the Shillingfords buried in one area. I wonder why. In very close proximity.
Well, you know the history of securing a burial site is that you approach the church and you buy or either lease your burial site, right? And the Shillingfords at the time, well-to-do people, they
bought the
could
area.
afford to pay to maintain their graves, and support the church also. So their graves and their families are maintained by their successors, and they continue to, follow the guidance of 7 years. Then you can put somebody else in the grave, and so those graves are constantly used. So where you see Howell Shillingford, my father then went into that grave. Then my mother went into that grave, and my brother Leslie went into that grave.
Where Howell is buried.
Where Howell is buried.
And Howell is your uncle.
And Howell is my uncle. Right?
And why not at Cavendish grave? He's your uncle too.
Well,
He died long before your father.
well, Cavendish is on the other side. It's on the Albert Charles side and the Howard side.
Okay.
Right? Because Thomas Howard's grave is in the Anglican cemetery. Right? Close to the Aids and all those people. Right?
Michael J. Davis says, hello, you're speaking about my grandmother, Eva Roll,
That's right.
and granduncle. What is this topic about? I mean, he tuned in late.
Yes.
We are talking about the Shillingford clan.
Clan, yes.
If you're not so sure, we're talking about the Shillingford clan, and we have one of a member of the family of the Shillingford, that's Gregory Shillingford. Gregory, you are first, second, third generation?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Juliet Shillingford and myself, 1 year, I think in the 80s, we decided to do a family tree. And when we thought that we were making good progress, we discovered that there was a lot of gaps to fill, you know. And then later on, I think about within the last 10 years, Davidson Shillingford, who lived at the beginning of Santa Roma, he did a family tree, and he traced almost everybody and put them in their various branches of the Shillingford family. Right? And so if you read Davidson's book, he wrote a book which can be obtained on Amazon. Right? He said the Shillingfords of Dominica, and also he had a subtitle, the Etiennes, because on his mother was an Etienne from Soufrière, and he wrote also about the Etiennes of Dominica. So a lot of the history is in that, but Dave has done revised editions of the book, because as he gets new information, you know, he revises it to bring it up to date. So, you know, it is, if you do a family tree, you know, today you can actually subscribe to a genealogy site on the internet, and you can buy a DNA kit, right? They send you the kit, you do a swab, you put the swab back in a test tube, you seal it and you post it back to them, and then you give them your email or your contacts, and they send you your history. So a lot of people who have done it are beginning to find out that they related to many people they didn't know they were related to. You know, but that sets out your history for you.
So here it is. Cleville Shillingford says, my great-grandfather Clifford was Albert Charles Shillingford's son.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
So what this program is doing?
It is allowing people to indicate where they are, where they came from.
And right away, Michael J. Davis says, Cleveland Shillingford, that's also my great-grandfather.
Right.
So they're already starting to talk about
Yes.
the tree,
Yes.
right on social media.
Yes. And let me share that in the U.S., there's a Shillingford clan, they met last year in Brooklyn, I think it was. And the oldest Shillingford there was Mrs. Liebird. You remember Mr. Liebird?
You talk about Jennifer?
Who?
You talk about Liebird for Batter?
Yes.
Yes.
His wife was a Liebird.
Yes, because the T.D. Shillingford was her father, right?
That's right, and T.D. was my father's brother, and Howell's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right?
So T.D. and A.C. were brothers?
No. A.C. was on Albert Charles'
side. Okay.
Right? But you had Howell, T.D., Stafford, Hughes, Willingfred, and a set of others, you know?
And someone says, the other person, Cleveland said, my dad is Telford.
Right.
So are you talking about Telford Shillingford, who lives in Santa Roma?
That's right.
On
the back road, just
Roma.
opposite the back road.
He was manager of Cable Wireless?
That's right.
Right.
So he came from that clan too?
Yes.
So he's your cousin?
Yes, he is my cousin.
And he has most of his land that were in Saint-Sauveur.
In Saint-Sauveur.
Mm-hmm.
He's a pineapple man.
Yes. In fact, when the government of Dominica gave the Order of Meritorious Service, and I received an Order of Meritorious Service for my contributions to agriculture and to cricket, Telford at the same time got an Order of Meritorious Service for telecommunications and for agriculture also, because he was not only in pineapples, but he was also in bay oil.
Bay oil, yes.
Yeah.
No, Gregory, your great grandfather came from Scotland.
No, he was a Dominican.
He was Dominican.
Dominican,
yes.
So your great-grandfather,
But his
father.
ancestors
His
came
ancestors.
from Oxford via Scotland.
So we can say that you're the fourth generation who actually lived in Dominica as Shillingfords.
Well,
Would you want to say that?
I guess you can say that, but in terms of accuracy, we'd have to
Do the research.
do the research and get it step by step, you know? Because a generation is what? How many years is a generation?
We are told 20.
Right, so you're going back to the 17-something.
Right. Let me ask you a question there. We haven't mentioned Heavy Shillingford. What is he?
Davis is a Huxley son.
Okay.
Yeah. And those who knew Huxley lived where, quite close to the port there, where that lady, what's her name?
Maboyd.
Maboyd. Right where Maboyd is, I think that was where Huxley's house was.
Yes.
There used to be a line of tamarind trees there. Right?
Right.
And people of my age or older remember driving along that road. It was well lined with tamarind trees, and Huxley's house was right there on the beach, right close to in the area of where my Boyd is. And the government acquired that property from Huxley, and when they were planning for expansion of port facilities.
Wow.
And then Huxley moved to Cahome, where he had his home, you know, and he brought up his children there.
Gregory, Michael Davis says, I think you know Michael Davis.
I know Michael
That
very
must be
well.
That's Chacha, right?
Chacha, yeah,
That's
Chacha's
Chacha.
son. Yeah.
Says that you all need to reconnect.
well, Chacha, from time to time, used to always be down here, you know, and he assisted us. He used to participate with us in canvassing, you know, prior to elections. He would also be our contact on the ground in the U.S. for contacting Dominicans, you know, letting them know it's their right to vote and organizing them and so on. You know, so I know him very well.
So someone said that's where ground pilot in the 79 crash on the tamarind tree. What's that about?
Well, that must be the tamarind tree where Huxley was living. I don't remember the crash, but I know there was a series of tamarind trees, and even you see that tamarind tree right opposite Esmat,
Yes.
right? So there were tamarind trees like that, as big as that, all along that bayfront there.
So Cherry Laffoy is saying, my late father lost his life to one of those tamarind trees in that area.
Wow.
It's Coing. He was a ground pilot for true. He slammed on the tamarind tree where you see the public works just
Yes,
around there.
That's right.
That's where he crashed.
Yeah.
I remember as a boy growing up, you know, all by E.H. Charles. I think the last one I saw was from by E.H. Charles,
Yes.
by
Yes,
Public Works.
right.
I think there's still one where my boy
Yes.
restaurant is.
Yes.
So along that coast there, we used to have a lot of tamarind
Tamarind
trees
Yes,
trees
a
there.
lot of tamarind
You know?
trees. Yes.
Yeah. And someone says in 1970s he died in the sports car.
Yeah, the sports car.
Yes.
He was that ground pilot.
Right.
So no, Gregory. Some people are wondering that the Shillingfords were that very white.
Well, if you see a picture of my grandfather, Thomas Howard, right, and also of Albert Charles, they look white. You know, they have the traditional moustache, which curls up and so on, and the way their hair and their suit. You know, they took pictures in their suit. I mean, he looked white, but his mother was a black woman, Felicity Dangleben. You know, so he was half white, but he looked white. Yeah.
No, Gregory. The concern that a lot of people have, let's use correct language, a lot of people have, in reference to the Shillingford, is the hoffing of lands. how can you address that for us?
Well, the Shillingfords accumulated their land because at the time a lot of white people who lived in Dominica were leaving Dominica. They no longer wanted to retain land. So when I looked at the lands my grandfather had acquired, and you looked at the deed of transfer, you saw a lot of white people, both English people, French people, and land was selling for 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 50 pounds, and that kind of thing. So if you had capital, you could have acquired land in those days. Now, like everybody else, or compared to other families, you always have instances of members of the family huffing land from other people, or some instances if you wanted to borrow money and you borrowed land from somebody who had money to give a loan to somebody, what they would take is a mortgage deed of sale, which means that if you didn't pay back the loan, then the land would convert to the person who gave the loan. Right? So lots of people, including my grandfather and other landowners, acquired land in that way. Some also cheated their families who were entitled to land from land that was assigned to them or demised to them. And so there's that reputation about huffing land. And I remember discussing with you, there's a case, a landmark case in the law reports of Dominica where Howell bought the land that his father was leasing from the McIntyres, and that was known as Battalier Estate. Battalier Estate at the time was 200 acres. So when Hugh Shillingford, who went to study at McGill University, he came back both as an engineer and a surveyor. As soon as he arrived, Howell Shillingford told him, "Here's I want you to go and survey the lands at Batterley for me." So being very professional, Hughes asked him for the papers, the deeds, or the titles in relation to what he wanted him to survey. So it is alleged that Howell told Hughes, "What nonsense, kisoto kapale lana." Yes, when Laukite Batterley, Mote aho kote mon rachet, tu no duet, marcher, le ou jouen au waterfall, tu ne duet, et puis marcher, le ou arriver à la villa Salisbury, tu ne duet encore, descendre côté la mer, le ou jouen la mer, tu ne duet, viwe Batterley, ça c'est Batterley. So Howell said, "But frère, moi vle pas plaire." Il s'est parti, allez faire travail ça, bah moi. So, in awe of his brother and his first job as a surveyor, he surveyed Batterley. But Batterley increased in size from 200 acres to 600 and something acres because it included Grand Savannah, which incidentally belonged to the state. So there's a story that when Albert Matthew returned from England, where he studied at the Inns of Law, that his first job given to him by Premier or Prime Minister Libla was
Premier
Libla. Libla told him, "Matthew, the policy of my government is to get land for the landless. So go and find out where all government land is." So Albert spent many months in the registry, and then he went to Libla and he said, "Premier, You know, there's a big issue of Grand Savannah used to belong to government, and now it is on the title of Batterley, joined to Batterley. So Libla instructed Matthew go to court. So they went to the High Court and they won the case. Then how will...
Was it the government won the case?
Yeah, government won the case. So then how will instructed Keith Allen to appeal. They went to the Supreme Court and Howell won the case. So the government then said, well, let's go to the Privy Council. When it arrived at the Privy Council, the Privy Councillors, the judges, they spent exactly, it is said, less than 10 minutes on the case. And they said that this case is frivolous and is a waste of time, of the court's time. And because the land, if it belonged to the state, but the registrar issued a first title on that land to Howell Shillingford, joined to Batterley, and therefore the government gave away its land, no case. So appeal denied, and that was the end of the case. So that case is a landmark case. When you go to school in Barbados or you go to school in Jamaica or in Trinidad law school, there is a landmark case. So that is how Howell acquired, right, Batterley.
400 acres more.
That's right.
Wow.
Right.
Including the Grand Savannah. Including Grand Savannah.
Well, Grand Savannah was the principal area that was attached
to the estate.
To Batterley. Because Batterley was just 200 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what about just after Batterley, is it where Dens Shillingford is?
Well, Dens is at Makushri.
Makushri. What about Makushri?
Right. Makushri had belonged, I understand, to James Roy. James Roy was from Venezuela, I think. You know, he was a businessman. And it came up in court, or it came up among the discussions in the LegCo at the time that James Roy was not paying his taxes, and the administrator at the time levied on the land and gave an order for its sale to raise taxes. So Howell bought Makushri from the administrator who had seized Makushri from James Roy. And that is how Howell acquired Makushri. And he used Howell, it is said that Howell used money he obtained from sale of a piece of land which belonged to his father, that is Thomas Howard Shillingford. And that land was where the financial center is. Now,
that is Pong.
Yeah, it's called Pong, and it was called Pong going back to the 1950s. But prior to that, that land was called Guinea Grass Piece, and Windsor Park was also Guinea Grass Piece. Right? And it had belonged to a white planter called Dubisson, who my grandfather bought that land from, where Pong is and where the financial center is. So Howell sold that land, which was rest and residue. Because rest and residue mean it was not assigned to any of his children or to anybody in the will. But Howell sold that land, and he used that money to buy Makushri. That's what I am told. I was told that by...
So we can say Pong was once upon a time belonging to the Shillingfords.
That's right.
Hazel Shillingford said, Howell is my great-grandfather.
Yes.
So the program is bringing out some...
No, Howell was not Hazel's great-grandfather.
That's what Hazel is just saying, that
Hazel's father was Hughes. Mm-hmm. And Hughes' father was Thomas Howard.
What would Howell be to her then?
Howell is her uncle. Howell was her uncle.
Howell was an uncle.
Right, just like how Howell is my uncle.
Okay. No. What about Collier? How did the Shillingfords acquire Collier?
Well, Thomas Howard had lands at Collier. He had about 2 or 3 shops in Collier. Right? And Collier is an interesting village, because I remember talking with Lennox on the church, who told me that a lot of French planters lived in Collier, and they had a lot of coffee shops and even shops where they had billiards and pools, you know. So planters used to come down from in the hills where they had their estates, and they would go to their homes in the village, and in the evening they would go and have a coffee or go to smoking shops just designed for that purpose, and they would play billiards and pools in those shops.
Just hold your thought a while. I don't want to lose this one. Hazel Shillingford said that, yes, he was. My father is Norman.
Oh, that's another Hazel there.
Yes, and my grandfather was Newell Shillingford.
Right, okay.
All right?
Yeah, that is correct.
Right, that's what the person said.
Right.
Thomas Howard.
Right.
Howell.
He's a great-grandfather.
Howell, Douglas, Albert Charles.
Yeah.
3 main lineage to
Yes.
trace the direct line.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought you
So
meant...
she said she's a different Hazel.
Yes, it's a different
She says a
Hazel.
different
You're
Hazel.
quite correct.
Yes, she said she's a different Hazel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so continue to tell us about Collier.
So it was...
Maybe Hazel, I do not know, maybe the Hazel of... if you say Norman is a grandfather, it means that is...
Norman is a father.
Norman is a father. It means that Norman Shillingford, Bath Estate. Well, sorry, Judel.
Yes.
That is Newell's son.
Yes, Newell's son.
All right, okay,
Right.
I know. So it means her mother is a Warrington from Bath Estate.
That's right. That is correct.
All right,
yeah.
so just to put it in context for people. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so Collier was a village involved in coffee and other crops that were suitable to the west coast there. And a lot of foreigners, well, I shouldn't say foreigners, a lot of expatriates, French, lived in Collier. And a lot of names in Collier reflect that lineage. Howell established himself in Collier. And before that, my grandfather established himself in Collier. And also in Dubla. Howell's mother was a Jean Baptiste. And Howell had many children in Collier. Cuthbert Shillingford was his son in Collier. He had other children, and he had a lot of other daughters. It is alleged that there was one house where he was loving 3 women in one home, and at the same time loving 2 women in another home. You know, I mean, I hear those things, and I said, wow, did that really take place? Or were they maligning Howell? But Howell had a lot of children. You know? So
what Irving Shillingford and Grayson Shillingford would have been to you?
Irving was my second cousin, because Irving was son of Cuthbert Shillingford, who was son of Newell. So Irving was my second cousin. And Grayson was son of, what's his name? But he was Howell's son. Grayson's father was Howell's son, so Grayson was my second cousin.
And first cousin of Irving.
Yes, and first cousin of Irving.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, your grandfather, here it is, your grandfather has all of this land.
Yeah.
Some of them that he claimed, some of them, we can say claim/off.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them he purchased.
Yeah.
Some of them he got them from persons making business if him and were not able to pay.
That's right.
Right. Now, he decided that he was going to get involved in politics.
No, that is Howell got involved
So
in
that's
politics.
his son got involved in politics.
Yeah, his son got involved in politics.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And What was it like? What did you hear about that son getting involved in politics?
Well, to have in those days you had the Legco, right? And I think there were Lennox says, and there's something on Facebook now, where it's in color and they show you how the different Legco, how representation was earned and so on and so forth. But Legco, even going back to when the first white people came here, they established regions around Dominica, 7 or 8 regions, I think consistent with the parishes. And the first requirement was that you had to be a landowner. And Howell, having acquired Batterley and Grand Savannah, acquired Jubla or Bell Hall from his father, and acquired Milton and different holdings up in Syndicate, and lots of land, other areas, Howell qualified as a landowner. But I think it's instrumental to understand what gave Howell that prowess in acquisition of land. And it had to do with every time his father, Thomas Howard, acquired land, Howell was the one who came to Roso to register those lands at the registry. So Howell, among all his brothers and sisters, was the one who only had the experience in the buying and selling of land, right? And he used his knowledge, to good self-interest. And ultimately, his ownership of land allowed him to qualify to be in the Legislative Council. He served for 45 years in the Legislative Council. He never lost an election. And, the elections was based on, like we have elections, people vote, registered people vote, and you vote. And the one thing I heard about him is that Howell used to ride through Monratchet, ride through Collyho, ride through St. Joseph, take a boat and go down to Jubla. And his style of campaigning was to say, elections Kavini, ou connaît ça ou ni pou faire. And the people used to say, yes, Bush, nou ke vote ba. That was his campaign. Election coming, and most of the people who vote for him is who worked for him, because a lot of those villages were dependent on employment on those estates that he owned. So it was very unusual, compared to today. It's a different landscape. So that was his experience. When he came to Roso to go to the Legco, he used to be well dressed in a white linen suit. He used to come up on a truck. He never owned a car. And there's something about Howell, that Howell's father, Thomas Howard, sent him to agricultural college at the Mon, right? The government under the administrator had an agricultural college at the Mon for the training of the children of landowners, so that they could learn about cocoa and coffee and limes and bananas and vanilla. These were the famous crops at the time. And Howell went to college on the weekends. They used to take a break. And whilst other students used to go in Roso looking for fun and meeting with the nice young women of Roso, Howell had an aversion about meeting with women in Roso, and he went instead to Point Michel, where he had he met a lady, and he had a child who became Mrs. Boyd, Donnie Boyd's mother or grandmother, I think it was. So Donnie Boyd and Irma Boyd and Marcella, their grandfather was Howell. Also, John Bully's wife.
You say that Donnie Boyd, the Donnie Boyd that we knew.
Yes, yeah.
Howard was his grandfather.
No. Howell was his grandfather.
Howell was his grandfather.
Yes.
What about Dr. Dorian Shillingford and the...
Yeah, I asked Dorian about, who his father was. He told me his father was from Newtown. Right? I don't remember his father's name. But I can find that out because Damien and I are very close.
So Albert Charles was in Newtown.
Yes, I think he was part of Newtown. But remember, their father, Albert Charles and Thomas Howard, had other children. So I don't know if some of them are the ones who were in Newtown. But I have not been able to trace what happened to them.
And someone told me that Emily Booley also was part of the clan.
That's right. Yeah, she was part of the clan. She was Howell's daughter.
Ah.
Right? She was Howell's daughter.
How many children Howell had really had?
I don't want to venture a guess.
Huh?
I don't want to venture a guess. But they say Howell had so many. There's a joke going that Howell was coming to Roso in his truck and he bunked somebody, or was that Cecil Shillingford? And when they got upset and say, "Who is your father?" and he said, "Mr. So-and-so is my father." And I think is either Howell or was it Cecil Shillingford? That was a joke, But they had so many children, you lost count of all of Howell's children. But I think there's some young, ancestors, not ancestors, the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Howell. They've been doing a lot of research as to who is who and tracing it.
So are you, did any one of his children, of Howell children, took that aspect of politics with them?
The only other politician I know, yes, which was...
Egbert?
There's Egbert, but I'm not sure whose father Egbert was. I think it was Thomas Howard. Yeah, Thomas Howard was his father. So Egbert became a politician. There's also a son of Garford Shillingford from Collyho. His son was a politician for the Freedom Party from Collyho. I forget his name. He migrated. I think he served 1 term or 2 terms. One term, right. He was the other Shillingford in politics. I cannot recall of any other Shillingford in politics.
So someone just told me that Albert Charles had 4 children with Anne Pinard of Newtown.
Yes, that is correct, yeah. Yeah, that is correct.
Uh-huh. Albert Charles of Snoqualmie had 2 sets of children. The first one on the side was Issy Shillingford, was ACS, and the other was Eva Roll. That would be his mother.
Right, that's right.
Wow. So that's how the Shillingford clan grew.
That's how it grew, yes.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah, what is Dr. Clayton Shillingford? Where is his origin?
His father was Hesketh Shillingford, who was son of ACS. In fact, yesterday I saw a picture of Hesketh as a young boy, maybe 11 years old, in a picture with his sisters, Mona, Verdun, and a few others,
Right.
I saw a picture of him.
So, in other words, he made a child with my Diana.
Yes, that's right.
Who Diana?
Diane
Peters.
Diane Peters.
Yes.
Diane Peters' wife.
Diane Peters' wife.
Yes.
Made a child for
the first of, I think, of
Hesketh.
Hesketh.
Yes. I think he was the oldest of Diane's children.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. No, the Shillingford that we're looking for in Collier is Wilmoth.
No, not Wilmot. Wilmot was also a politician from St. Joseph.
Yes.
But he worked at Juicy Factory.
Yes. Not this one we're talking about.
Not that one I'm talking about. Another one, a red skin looking one.
Mm-hmm. I seen the
Like
face.
Irvin, looking like
Yeah.
Irvin.
Okay.
But his father was Gafford, Shillingford.
No, you hear that? So some person are giving us some good information.
Yeah.
Then Charles went on to have 6 more with a Sarah Lady of St. Joseph.
That's right.
Then he had Darlene Douglas. Wow. Elford Clifford.
That's right.
That
I
is.
think Elford was Dorian's father.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the person giving you that information if they can confirm that.
If what?
Ask the person if Elford was Dorian's father.
The person would hear that for sure and would give us the answer. Then they said Hesketh had 28 children.
Wow.
Yes.
My grandfather.
Yes.
28.
So the person who's giving me that information is a Shillingford.
That's right.
I mean,
28.
her last surname is not Shillingford.
No, I know.
But she
I
is
know.
saying that,
Yeah, her last
I hope,
name is a
if she wants me to call her name, I can say that. But she said
Yes.
Hesketh had 28 children.
That's right. And they had a family reunion. I think when one of their siblings died in Grenada, there were about 28 of them there.
And Hazel Shillingford Ricketts is saying Egbert Shillingford was the grandson of Thomas Howard Shillingford.
That is correct.
Boy, they had children. But it's a whole clan. They have the whole of Dominica, man.
Yeah.
The Shillingfords made children all over the place.
And I wonder if most of that is on the West Coast. What did they do on the East Coast?
Reborn.
You know what they did on the East Coast? Anybody can help me?
Well, let me give you a joke.
Yes, give me a
Let me
joke.
give you a joke, right? Hazel's father, Hughes, right, told me that one day a white fella said to my grandfather, Thomas Howard, he said, Shillingford, I want you to come with me to Pocassie to advise me whether I should buy a piece of land that has become available for sale. So Thomas Howard went with the guy. So they rode horses and they reached Pocassie. And then the fella said, that is the land over there. So what do you think of it? So Thomas Howard said, huh? So the white fella said to Thomas Howard, why you say, huh? He said, let me tell you something. The principal crops in Dominica right now are cocoa and limes, right? Which you pack into barrels. You load it onto a tugboat. The tugboat goes out at sea and loads it onto the steamships heading for England. So the white fella said, well, why are you telling me that? So Thomas Howard told him, he said, sir, when you fill your barrel, you're supposed to just kick it and it can roll and go in the sea. So if you're looking for land for export and you want to be in agriculture, buy land on the west coast, not in Pocassie, because you will have to have 100 mules and horses and buggies to bring your produce down to the sea. Right? Because the main means of trade and transportation in those days was along the coast.
Yeah.
I remember as a little boy going to St. Joseph with my father and mother, and we were going to visit my grandmother in Culibistry, and we had to take a boat with guys rowing the boat to get to Culibistry. The road was not developed in those days where you had transportation, right?
So Gregory, you know your father had 2 children, or he had much more?
My father had more than 2 children. My father had about 12 children. You know Conjo, who played Clayton Shillingford, who used to work at Public Works, he played cricket for Dominica. He died about a year now. He was my brother. Then Arthur.
A guy who lived in St. Joseph?
Yes.
That guy was your brother?
You remember we met him at a funeral?
A funeral, yes.
And he was talking to us?
Yes.
Yes, that's my brother.
So your,
Yeah, that's a secret you kept away from me, man.
your father had
Yes.
outside children.
We
then?
went to a funeral of his brother.
Okay.
Yes.
It was his brother, right, in St. Joe?
No. It was Hazel's brother.
Hazel's brother, right?
Yes.
Living in Emsall.
Yes.
And these two guys, they're talking and chatting about cricket and football.
That's right.
Like they were just friends going to school.
Yeah, brothers.
And he's now saying that they were brothers. They are brothers.
Yeah. And Arden Shillingford was Stafford's son.
Adam,
Yes.
now your brother too, man.
Yes, he's my brother, yes.
Wow, your father.
Adam, the one in England?
Yes, he used to be England as High Commissioner.
High Commissioner.
Your brother too?
Yeah, in England. He was my brother.
What? Your father had children outside?
Yeah, man. And I had sisters. Nora was my sister. I forget. Some of them have died. I've forgotten them.
So what Mrs. Shillingford said then when all that was happening?
Well,
Can you say?
in these days, as a young boy, you didn't get involved in debate between your mother and father. But what I don't... but-
Took the lady from Trinidad,
yeah,
had Gregory first,
yes,
then Leslie,
yeah.
and had 10 more.
Well, before. Leslie
Before
was
Leslie
the
came.
last one.
Leslie was the last.
Yeah, Leslie was the last. But the one before the last was Wrecker. You know Wrecker?
Oh, yeah, Rekha in Grand Bay.
In Grand Bay.
So Rekha in Grand Bay is your brother?
Yes.
Rekha is your brother?
Yes.
Well, look,
Rekha in
history.
Grand Bay is your brother?
That's right.
But look, history, boy. Them fellas used to run like.
Look, someone just said that there. Before you said that, someone said Alpha Rekha is his brother.
That's right.
You mean that, man?
Oh, hold on, let's go to the telephone. Someone wants to speak to you, Gregory. This is coming sweeter and sweeter. I'm sorry about that call. You have to call us back. I'm sorry about that. Let's go to another call. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes. What about Dave Shillingford and Connie Shillingford?
What, Shillingford?
Connie Shillingford and Dave Shillingford. Your mother was a teacher, Miss Shillingford, at the Roso school. What about...
Connie and Dave, their mother was Etienne. And
their
their father was Howell's son.
Okay.
Yeah. And their father used to work at Gis Industries.
I realize that. I know.
Yes,
This
yes.
will just ID garden opposite the
That is correct. That is correct. And then they bought a house in Santa Roma.
Yeah, and some of them migrated to St. Lucia.
Yes, yes. They had a lot of sisters, Lola, and the one married to what's his name?
Because Point Michel,
Point Michel,
Fortune.
yes, yeah.
Fortune.
Fortune.
Fortune, that's right. Fortune's wife was Dave and Connie's sister.
All right, thanks.
Oh,
Yeah.
look.
So hold on. You're talking about Connie, who are the ice cream parlor?
No, Connie is
Connie
a
was-
doctor.
Oh,
Dr. Conrad Shillingford.
Oh, okay.
He was a doctor in Jamaica. His daughter was married to Chris Derrin, who worked at Cricket West Indies and is now CEO of Cricket West Indies.
Wow.
Took your job.
Yeah, his daughter was called Sasha, right? Her mother was Tony Bellot. Tony Bellot, brother, sister of Parry Bellot.
In Point Michel.
No, not in Point Michel, from Roso.
Roso.
Yeah.
So some persons are saying to me that there are Shillingfords in Cassibros.
Yes.
And there's also in Wesley.
Yes, there's a Shillingford. She was in government. That's one of
Gloria?
Gloria is a Shillingford. Yeah.
No, her husband was Shillingford.
Her husband was Shillingford.
Yes, Benji Shillingford.
Okay. all right.
Benji Shillingford.
Okay.
Yes. So
But she
that
carried the name.
She carried the name. So that means that Benji must have come from the clan of that family of yours.
That's right.
And most likely because someone is saying that there are Shillingfords in Wesley.
Yes.
No doubt.
And Cassibros.
Yes, no doubt. Yeah.
And also in St. Joe. Well, St. Joe have a lot.
A lot of them.
Yeah,
West Coast,
St. Joe has a lot of them.
Yes. Slappy, Conjo, and many others.
Let me tell you that, Cecil, when you made a child with a Shillingford, you had title, you know. So women would be rushing to these men
Is that true?
to have them
Gregory?
get pregnant. Yes.
I have heard that.
Yeah, they're plantation owners, you know.
Are you trying to be diplomatic? You have heard that, or it's a fact?
Yeah, but we want to.
I have heard that.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I cannot talk for how women felt in those days, but obviously, the same thing might persist now where, if you feel that you're loving a fella that have money, you attach what you can obtain for your own development and your children's development.
Yes, that's part of the culture,
That's right. I mean,
you stay where the money is.
Yourself
Someone just corrected me and said that Benji Shillingford was Gloria's brother-in-law. Yes.
Okay.
So we get that correction.
Nice.
Right.
Benji's and the person said that Benji's my first cousin. So if Benji's your first cousin, that's what the person is saying. And I think that person is talking to me, Cleveland.
Yeah.
Clearville, sorry. I think he came from the Howard clan. Is that that's what you said? His
Well,
father was my dad's brother.
Yeah, well, remember there were two Howards. There was Thomas Howard and then there was Richard Howard. Right? Richard Howard was the one related to the Hugo Astafan, Reggie Astafan,
Yes.
and so on.
And the person is saying, someone is saying to me that Gloria's husband, Ashton Shillingford, he just passed. He just died, sorry.
Yes.
So he's deceased.
And there was an Ashton Shillingford working at
At
Cable
Cable
and Wireless.
Yes, that's the son of Telford.
That's right. That's son of Telford. That's right.
He works at GIS now.
Yes.
Wow.
So he came from that Howard clan.
That's right.
No, when you look at the whole thing,
Uh-huh.
the Shillingfords have roots in Dominica. It's a whole generation, man. My good friend. Yeah, lots of children and grandchildren. The family tree is wide.
And hear that Gregory. It's amazing, tonight what we can get from families. A family member said that Shillingford all over.
All over.
Grenada.
Yes.
Hesketh had 8
In Grenada.
children in Grenada.
That's right. I knew all of them.
Plus his 5 older girls.
Yes, that's right. And he had 2 sons. One was Albert, used to play soccer for Academy and for Dominica. And the other one was Ian.
Uh-huh.
Right?
So hold on. What is this guy, that Shillingford guy from Salisbury, is to you?
He's my either second cousin or something like that.
You know what I'm talking about?
Hillary Shillingford?
Hillary Shillingford.
Yeah, Hillary was Egbert. I think he's in the Egbert lineage. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So St. Clara Shillingford is part of the clan then?
That's right. That's correct.
Wow.
Someone said
There's even a Shillingford in Australia who is Dorian Shillingford's sister.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Boy, that clan is wide, man.
But Cecil, I mean, besides having land and having children, I mean, Shillingford's made significant contributions to Dominica, right? And you might want to talk about that.
Right. Let me ask you a question. What was Eric Shillingford, the fella that died in the fire?
That was Hesketh's son.
Hesketh.
That was Hesketh's son.
So
He was my godfather.
Oh, Eric was your godfather,
That's right.
the one who died during the carnival.
but he was your second cousin
Yes,
or first cousin?
my second cousin, what's his name? Majiro
Ashiro.
was his mother.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. That's history.
Yeah, man.
Who is Davin Shillingford?
Davina. Davina is ACS' daughter, last daughter. ACS had a will that had over 50 pages, I think.
How many?
What?
About 50 pages.
A will? 50
Yes,
pages?
50 pages. And he provided for Davina using words. And to my unborn child, who is presently in her mother's stomach, I live so and so and so and so, land or shares in land and so on. So he made provisions in his will, that is ACS, Albert Cavendish, for his unborn child.
Boy, that's something else. Wonderful story, man.
Yep.
Wow. No, let me ask you a question while thing. How was Juicy formed? Seeing that, I just want to take a little Juicy.
Well, Juicy was a franchise, I think, out of Barbados. There was a Juicy also in St. Vincent.
So hold on a while. Hold on. Someone just said brain. Hear this. Where is it? Someone just said, how will, that came from Philip Thomas, whoever that Philip Thomas is. How will Shillingford was Brain father's uncle?
Yes, but I didn't tell him.
So hold on. So you from the Gregory. Mr. your second cousin too. Brain is your second cousin.
He mentioned that to me, when we sat down before the show started.
James is my cousin. James Shillingford.
Yeah.
Someone said that Hilary Shillingford was the son of Green Shillingford.
Green, that's right, Green Shillingford. Right.
And Green Shillingford was the son of Thomas Howard
Shillingford. That is correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. This is something else.
That's something else, man.
Someone says, which Shillingford clan does Roy Shillingford from Mahu came from? And also Neva Shillingford. Well, we just said Neva Shillingford was Eric Shillingford Eric Shillingford was a father.
Yeah.
And so Howard would have been her grandfather.
Yes.
Right. So we said that.
What about Roy Shillingford?
So Roy Shillingford.
Roy Shillingford's father was
Lakou.
Hartford. He was Stafford's cousin or brother. I'm not sure, but he and my father was very close. And besides Roy, he had a guy called Alex Ford Shillingford who migrated to England, and I think now he lives in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And then Roy has another brother, and Roy has a sister, right? But he's from the Shillingford that lived in Massac there.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's correct.
So Lauren Binois said,
Yep.
who is a family member of yours,
Yes.
said that ACS 2
Mhm.
Albert Cavendish Phoenix
Yes.
was her great grandpa.
Grandfather, that's right.
So the Lauren that I know, Lauren Binois that I know,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that
She was
came
part of the clan.
from the clan of the Shillingfords.
Yeah, but I told you, whenever they meet in the U.S., it's over 200 Shillingfords, They go to a picnic site. I saw pictures of it.
How many? Almost 200?
Yeah, about 200 of them in the States met once in a site close to the beach in a park. And everybody have their sign identifying which part of the Shillingfords they're from, who was their father, who was their mother, or their grandfather. I mean, that was so amazing when I looked at that on Facebook.
Wow.
And as I said, the oldest one was Malai Bird, right? Who I think since died earlier this year.
That's history, man.
Yeah, man.
Someone said that Neva Shillingford's grandfather was Hesketh.
Yep. That's right, because Hesketh's son was Eric. He was identified to take over the ACS business. He was assigned to be in charge of the Shillingford garage, where they ordered Vauxhall vehicles, and he had been sent overseas. I don't know where he trained, to train in maintenance and repairs of cars and to operate a service center for vehicles. And he was being identified, to be a future leader.
Yeah, that Lauren Binois said, look at me, I am Hesketh twin. I was raised by Hesketh's sister, Eileen.
That's right.
Masparo.
Eileen, yeah.
Masparo?
Masparo, that's right.
So Masparo, where the new building is being built on Cock Street and
It's built already. It's built already.
It's built already, sorry.
Right.
You're saying to me that
Sparrow.
Masparo there, Sparrow Winston's
wife
was a Shillingford?
Yes, she was a Shillingford. That's Lauren's grandmother.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
No, you were talking about the entrepreneur Eric Shillingford sent out to train.
Yeah.
Do you believe that it could have been one of the reasons why people are saying that the fire was not an accident?
I try not to.
I too. I'm happy the answer you gave him.
I try not to comment on that.
Let's not go to that.
Fair
Yes,
game.
yeah.
Fair game.
No, Bill Daniels said, "Good evening, panel. Is it possible to say something about Telford Shillingford and his children in Collier?"
Telford. I don't know the name Telford. I know Garford in Collier.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I don't know a Telford. It could be Trelford. I'm not sure.
And someone said that Eric actually studied in England.
Yes.
He did mechanic,
Yes.
and at nights he went to cake shop, to cake school.
Yeah. That's news to me. That's first time I'm hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so he studied in England.
Yep.
So someone wants to know about, that's Henry and Berrich wants to know about Brian Shillingford. That's Rats. You know about
Right.
Rats. Live in Kings Hill.
Well, Rats is son of Ivan Shillingford. Right?
Mm-hmm.
His youngest brother was Johnny. His oldest brother was Newton. And he had two sisters, one called Shamin and the other one called Concy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Ivan was son of Isaac Newton Shillingford. Right? Rats was maybe the one before the last. I knew him, but after I went away, I lost contact with him. But since I've been back in Dominica, we meet often at close to Sutton Hotel or at Whitchurch. Sometimes he plays music there, you know. And he has children. He has a child who works at the Aid Bank, or a daughter. He has a daughter also who has always made numerous attempts to help him to rehabilitate him because he had a little drug or a substance problem.
Yeah.
But we are cousins of sorts. Yeah.
Does the land that they had in Eggleston and the house, they're still there?
Yes, I think Newton acquired part of the land. I think his father left part of the land where not Newton, where Ivan stayed, and the rest of it was sold. I think they sold part of that property to Frank Barron.
We asked earlier on around about Dorian, that's Dr. Dorian Shillingford.
Yeah.
The person, Jennifer Titt, says that Dorian Shillingford, my cousin, was the son of Abbott Shillingford, son of Howell Shillingford. His mom, my aunt, was Eileen Tavernier Shillingford.
Very interesting.
That must be a different Dorian.
Maybe a different Dorian.
Yeah, I think that's a different Dorian.
No. Someone asked us to speak a little bit more of Ivan Shillingford. Tell us something about Ivan Shillingford.
Ivan Shillingford became famous as a cricketer, batsman. He was captain of Dominica. He played for the Windward-Leeward's team because in the days when Dominica was part of the Leeward Islands, he was selected for the Leewards, because I've seen pictures of him at the Antigua Cricket Association office being part of the team there. He was one of Dominica's leading batsmen at the time. They said that he was one of the first proponents of when a bouncer was sent down at him, he would just position his bat and let it slide along the bat and it would go over third man for 6. He was the first batsman, very reliable batsman, many times used to be not out. I never saw him play, but when you listen to people talk about him, you know, he was among the best batsmen produced by Dominica. There's a story involving him and my father, because my father, when he first gained selection on Dominica's team, and people may not know that my father was a very nervous fella, and so when my father faced his first ball, he hit the ball, and he said, "Ivan, run!" And Ivan told him, "No, Stafford is going too straight to a man. Go back, go back." Stafford is alleged to have run down the wicket and kneel down begging Ivan, "Ivan, run, I tell you, Ivan, run." And he was run out for naught. But Ivan was his captain, you know. So Ivan played for Dominica, you know, many, many times. And he was most famous as a cricketer. He never excelled in business or in agriculture.
Wow.
You know, but he was a very, very good cricketer.
Someone said that to speak about Emmanuel Peterson Shillingford, who owned River Estate.
That's right.
Also, what about Abbott Shillingford? Was the accountant of A.C. Shillingford for many years.
Yeah, and previous to that, after being accountant at A.C. Shillingford, Abbott worked at Gis Industries as an accountant. Mm-hmm. His children were Connie Shillingford and Dave Shillingford. His oldest daughter was Lola. Then Fortune's wife was his daughter. And he had other children, one who married a Trinidadian, in fact, one married a doctor from Barbados, you know, and their mother was Eileen. And every time I go to pay my bill at the Wasco, I have to distinguish between Eileen and Eileen so that my payment doesn't go to Eileen's account, you know. So Abbott was Howell's son.
Okay, so that's why someone said Jennifer Titt. They are talking about Dr. Dorian Shillingford, who was married to Eileen Johnson, daughter.
Okay, well, that's Damien's father, yes. But I don't think Abbott was his father. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. Because I remember asking Dorian who was his father, and he never mentioned Abbott.
Okay, boy, that I'm getting so much information there on the Facebook about the Shillingford. It's amazing, you know.
Yeah.
No, tell us a little bit about the Shillingfords in Newtown. We know that in Newtown there were the Shillingfords and business.
Well, the Shillingford, remember, they were in the lime business. And they had factories at Soufriere. They list factories from El Rose and Company, or even somebody before that, and they had a factory in Soufriere. They had a factory at Newtown factory where they crushed limes, and I think they also crushed sugarcane there. So I think there are a number of other Shillingfords. Holman Shillingford lived right opposite Suki there, in that small house where there was an ice cream parlor by Island Ice Cream. That house, C.K. Shillingford and all his brothers and sisters lived there. And there's some other Shillingford guys that I think one played soccer for Thunderbirds. He's a friend of Tom Webb and all these other guys. I forget his name. But I don't know if then New Will lived also in Citronia. He had 2 parcels of land that his uncles gave him as a wedding present when he got married. But I don't know of other Shillingfords who lived in.
No. Newell Shillingford. Whenever people talk about the Shillingford family, mm-hmm. and they talk about jokes, they must talk about Newell Shillingford.
Yes.
people would say my long handles, all my boys love short handles shirts or something of that nature.
All my shirts are long handles.
All my shirts are long handles.
Yeah.
If you want to see a boat race, you can come to the Newtown Savannah.
No.
All of these jokes I heard of.
No, the joke about the boat race was you used to line up in Fetmawe and look at the boat races on the bayfront in Roso.
Mm-hmm.
But you used to have difficulty getting a space in the front to actually see the racing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Newell made a comment. He thinks that they should move the boat race to the Windsor Park so more people can see better. But I know because I was there when he gave a joke, right? As I said, he used to be a supervisor for my father, assisting my father in grapefruit production and harvesting and bananas and so on. And I one day heard Newell telling my father, but Stafford, moka toujours tan kot on hijack. Me se plain la, you tell ma go, you tell ma ho, ki kalite jack ou ka papu hijack se plain sa.
This is a good one.
but
someone said that Newell had this one. All my sons are boys,
that's right.
and all my daughters are girls.
But when Newell's daughter, his first daughter Tessa, was getting married to I forget his name, because he was my senior in grammar school.
Mm-hmm.
So my father couldn't go to the wedding, so he told me, Gregory, you have to go and represent me in the wedding. So when it was time for Newell to talk, he thanked everybody for coming to the wedding, Tessa and the husband's wedding. And he wished to thank them from the bottom of his heart. So somebody whispered to him, and Newell, you have to wish them on behalf of your wife too. And he said, and I wish them from my wife's bottom too. No, I was there, right? But Newell, he was a good agriculturist, and he was a not too bad contractor.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's even a joke where he built a roof, and somebody said it didn't have enough slope. So he told the workers, and he sloped tree. correcting the slope of the roof, you know. But you know, as I say, everybody in their times achieved their missions, right?
So how many children that Newell had?
Newell had about 10 children, I think, you know.
Okay.
Howard was the first. Then he had about 2 or 3 daughters and about 4 or 5 boys. Norman, the first son was Howard, then you had Norman, then another one, I think 2 others, and then the rest of them were daughters, I think.
No, what about Norman in Norman Shillingford in Pottersville?
Yeah, he was son to, I forget his father's name. You know.
Ghana Shillingford.
Ghana Shillingford. And he had many children, Howard and
Spencer.
So all that came from way back of, what's your great-grandfather name?
Thomas Howard. And also Peterson. Ghana was Peterson, on the Peterson side, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy,
Yeah.
those guys were terrible.
Yeah, man.
But you know the joke about Norman?
But Norman Shillingford?
Yeah.
Norman Shillingford in Pottersville?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Tell me.
He remember his daughter had a medical issue, and money was awarded to the daughter. I don't know if it was in the States or wherever it is.
States.
So he was able to benefit from some of the daughter's windfall where they settle insurance settlement. And so he started investing in various businesses. He also invested in a plane, a cargo plane. And the guy that was the jeweler who became a pilot, what's his name again? Waldron. So one day Waldron said, no man, you're the owner of the plane. Come with me now. Let's go St. Thomas, however, that we were going to pick up and, do trading, drop off goods in St. Thomas and bring back goods from St. Thomas. So when they were coming back, Waldron is alleged to have told Norman, is your plane, do some flying, learn to do some flying. So Norman saying, maybe I don't think so. No? So Waldron, and yes, man, the thing is easy, man. Just hold the thing and I'll tell you what to do. So he held the steering mechanism and he's flying. So when he reached about 20 minutes outside Dominica, the Melville Hall Tower said, whatever the name of the plane, something NYG 9Y something, what is your position? So the man looking at Waldron, so Waldron telling me, you're the captain, you don't have to answer. So finally, look at your instruments and then answer. Well, no man couldn't read the instruments. So he said,
that's your cousin.
Answer.
Remember, that's your cousin talking about it.
Yes, but I'm not lying, it's a fact.
Answer.
Right? So Norman said, when Norman looked in front of him, he see a Liat. He said, my position is right behind the Liat. So they ask him, what is your speed?
Hold on. Can you make Norman Shillingford call this radio station and use some kind of language that we cannot understand?
What is your speed?
I say, is Samo Tano?
Yeah, his speed.
So they ask him, what is your speed? Because you have the tower has to know what is your speed to tell you if it's to slow down or speed up or whatever it is. What is your speed? So Norman looking at the partner, Waldron, what's my speed? Norman said, look at your instruments. Your instruments will tell you what's your speed. He said, but I can't understand that. He said, well, Waldron telling the partner, you cannot not answer the tower, you have to answer. He said, same speed as the Liat. So the tower then says, what is your ETA, your expected time of arrival? So he turned to Waldron again. Waldron partner telling me, that's the captain, you have to answer. So Norman say, boy, Waldron, you fucking me up. So Waldron tell him, Norman, answer. He say, right after the Liat.
And I can hear Norman saying that.
Right.
Remember, he had a tone that was dragging.
I telling you.
Right after the Liat.
I telling you. But up to the other day, I asked my wife, where's Norman, boy? She told me he's somewhere, boy.
Norman in America.
He's American.
Norman in America.
No, but Norman contributed, he had businesses, he invested, and he bought a plane, he was doing trading. And as I told you, some Shillingfords made great contribution.
But if you see Norman call and Jiwe us, I say it's you,
No, you can say it's me.
I said, Norman, I'm a very good friend.
Yeah.
You know that we work together for softball competitions. So it's not me, it's Gregory, your cousin, that is saying that. And he will say, Gregory!
Same speed.
There's a joke I heard, and I learned a line that says, well, Cecil, if you don't want to say it's you can say it's me.
Boy.
But you see, Norman don't know your voice from mine.
You call him.
And Norman knows that I respect him. So there's no way that I would say that kind of figure was Norman. What is your expected arrival?
ETA, what is your expected time of arrival? Is it right after the
Right after the I suspect I have to buy a shit for you right after the Boy, Gregory, not easy, boy. Your cousin said to you, Gregory, memory is real good. To give us. So normally, Norman, I'm sorry, Gregory, we can say the Shillingford family are very jovial.
Very jovial.
Very jovial. And as I say, we have some of us have accomplishments. I mean, as I say, in terms of politics, is the person served in the legislature longest, 45 years, right? In terms of families,
and we can say Dominica,
right?
Not just the family, but Dominica,
and even in the Windward Islands and the Caribbean, I don't know who has served 45 years, and the term was 5 years, 45 years, about 8 terms, you know.
Wow.
No, 9 terms. You know?
Wow.
And then you had at least 6 Shillingfords in Parliament, you know? And many doctors. You know, Dorian Shillingford was, when he went to grammar school, he left records in the 100 yards race when you had sports day.
Dorian?
Yeah, Dorian. He and Cozy Harris were guys who left records in the 100 yards.
Coming out first or coming out last? Which one?
First.
100 yards.
Yeah, first. Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Irvin, or even before Irvin, you had Leroy and Einstein playing for Dominica. Hughes played for Dominica. He was a fast bowler. Right? And Irvin, the first person to make a test side. Grayson was the first person to play tests as a Dominican. You know, then Irvin made tests, then Shane played for Dominica. Trevor Shillingford played for Dominica, I think.
Telford
Shillingford played for Dominica. And many Shillingfords that played for Dominica. You know, and I mean football, what's his name? I just called his name. He's Heskif's son, Leroy. Leroy played soccer for Dominica.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, together with Clem John and these guys.
Well, I'm just told also that Brian Allen's mother is a Shillingford.
That's right. Well, she's one of 3 sisters, was daughters of Peterson Shillingford. Right? They owned a business, what do you call it? They owned the building where the bank was, Bank Forces, and they had a business there. 3 of them had a joint venture business, a realtor business, and you know, they invested, and that sustained, you know, their families. You know, when the last sister died, Mrs. Burton. When Mrs. Burton died, in her eulogy.
Hold on, you're talking about D.K. Burton's wife?
No, not D.K. Trevor Burton's mother.
Okay.
Right. They spoke about, you know, she and her 2 sisters investing in a realtor business. And, you know, they build in that building, the Bank Forces building, and then upstairs they had the auditors renting upstairs, you know. And that was unusual for women to be investing in that manner, you know.
Yes.
You know, so then you had Clayton Shillingford, who went away and to Jamaica, and then he went to the States. He became a doctor in agriculture and biochemistry, and you know.
But was the island scholar?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Also, you had Dave Shillingford and Connie Shillingford and all those guys going to Jamaica, becoming doctors, and you know, Clayton came back and taught at the grammar school. His nickname was Major. Everything he did, he was the best in it. That's why they called him Major. You know, And, we had a lot of people. Dave Shillingford worked with top companies, Johnson & Johnson. A lot of achievements, Hazel Shillingford, distinguished herself as a top eye doctor. Got good scholarships, went to Canada, and instrumental in getting assistance to develop the eye clinic at the hospital now. And lots of achievements. I mean, I became the first Dominican to be the CEO of Cricket West Indies. The second CEO was Donald Peters from Dominica. So we made great contributions in agriculture. I know of my father and lots of other Shillingfords, ERI and Peterson's children at River Estate, and other parts of Dominica, Telford and his father, and Telford in agriculture in Saint-Sauveur. So lots of contributions.
I want to go a little bit about you, Gregory Shillingford. We can come back and talk about the family.
Yep.
You worked with the Dominica Banana Marketing Corporation as the CEO.
Yes, I
Give
did.
us an understanding of what that position was.
Well, I was the CEO, right, the general manager of DBMC, and for 2 terms, two-year terms. The first term, I brought my management skills to DBMC. At that time, we used to be funded and assisted by Stabex, which was a European Union fund. And every time we had storms or hurricanes, we would have to do development work. And I started speaking about, development, because in those days, a lot of people used to feel when you get money from the European Union, it's just to distribute cash. And I spoke about let's concentrate on productivity, introduce irrigation, do fertilizers, do land planning where it's best for agriculture, where best for bananas. Because at the time, growers felt that anything they produce, that DBMC should buy it, whether the quality was good. We used to have a lot of issues of stones and all kinds of non-banana fruit going in the boxes to make up weight. And we had to be trying to educate growers that that was not what the market was looking for. Hartley, do you remember when women were carrying bananas on their head from the packing shed where Cable and Wireless have their yard?
Not the packing. You can say the banana packing shed.
Banana packing shed.
That is where
Cable and Wireless.
Cable and
No,
Wireless.
Dominic.
Dominic is
on the
there.
jetty there.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And as you pass in, if it was a penny for carrying to go on the tugboat, it was a bunch, and then you loaded the bunches onto the tugboat. The tugboat took them out to the geese boat, loaded them in a hole. They got to England. Then they had to be de-handed in England. And you throw away the stem of the bunch. And, there's discussion saying that this was inefficient, and, so I contributed to development programs then. And when I came back for my second stint, my main achievements was in bringing Dominica to be the best quality of bananas on the European market, and also getting selected multiples, that is like the supermarkets, Marks and Spencer, Tesco, Waitrose, Asda, and so on, to establish niche markets in Dominica. So, for example, in the Kalinago territories and in Cassibrus, we used to concentrate then on small bananas, so that is short finger bananas. That is what Marks and Spencer wanted. Also, we had a program for certifying quality. We had a certified farmer program because the multiple said to us that if we cannot certify good quality in every box every week, they would seek buying bananas elsewhere. So we had to do a program of certification. In those days, when I had joined again, we had only 30 certified farmers from among 2,000 farmers, and farmers refused to become certified. So the board said to us, and with I as manager, that we need to get farmers to join the certification program. So I said to them, well, will you give me permission to implement initiatives that can guarantee that? They said, whatever you need to do, do it. So I went to the chief financial officer, who established for me that we had a 3-tier pricing system, A, B, and C. But for each of those tiers, farmers were living very comfortable, right? And so I said, well, okay, let us change the prices. For price C, put it at a price where a farmer cannot survive on that price. And so do also that with B. And what you take off on price C and B, put it as on price A, and by way of a 10 cents premium on the A price, which was the best price. So when farmers realized we changed the price structure, they wanted to get A because that was giving them a lot of money, and they couldn't survive on B and C. So farmers started to flock to the extension officers and said, what can we do to earn the price A? And the extension officers would say, well, become certified. So whereas guys were refusing to be certified, they were running down extension officers to teach them how to become certified by way of training, right, and education and provision of adjustments on their vehicles, because you used to have a lot of vehicles where the vehicles used to be overpacked and have too many stacked high, and it would, damage the bananas in the lower sections of the vehicle. Also fixing the road so that your rough road wouldn't also affect your quality, and your packing shed, to be organized properly, your pack house, to be able to dehand and to cluster the bananas, wash them, and prepare them to be market ready. So we were able to introduce that program where everybody became certified, and Dominica's quality was the top quality for at least 2 years whilst I was there. We got a lot of awards, and I can tell you that one day a delegation from Marks and Spencer came to visit, and they said they wanted to visit farmers who delivered their short finger bananas to them. So we took them to the Kalinago territories, and we went to visit a guy's farm. I think the guy was a Valmore. And whilst they were talking, we allowed the Marks and Spencer officials to talk to him. And they asked him, so do you use chemicals in your bananas? And so the guy looked at us, we told him, answer the question. He said, yes, sir, we use chemicals because we spray for thrips, and we spray for nematodes, and we spray for weeds. So they asked him, what do you do with the bottles, the chemical bottles? Do you just throw them away in the environment? Do you throw them in the fields? And Valmore said, no, sir, we don't throw them away. We store them in a box, for disposal in the appropriate manner, because we, the Kalinago people, we have been one with nature for the last 500 years, and we do not intend to diminish, our legacy and our relationship with the land. When I heard that, and Kevin Stevenson, who was my operation manager, when we heard that, we felt so good. I told Kevin, give that fella inputs for a whole year, because that was the best statement, right? A mature statement and a statement of value, right? Which engendered our reputation with Marks and Spencer. So that was one of my greatest achievements, in bananas. And we introduced irrigation. We introduced a system of packing bananas properly from the field, and achieving good quality. We also had a system of flagging. We had colored flags which would tell you the maturity or the stage of the bananas. And then we would announce on a date of harvest which color bananas to harvest, on the trees based on the flag attached to the bunch. So we at DBMC, we used to be invited to Grenada, invited to St. Lucia, invited to St. Vincent to come and see what was our best practices, what we were doing, so that they could emulate what we were doing. So that was my best achievement.
I know that you also helped in the negotiations.
Yes, at the WTO.
At the World Trade Organization
yes.
for banana farmers.
Yes, we did. That was when we were under threat from the dollar bananas, Chiquita, Dole, and Monte, better known as dollar farmers, the American companies. They were petitioning the European Union through the WTO and challenging that we were benefits of preferential treatment. And, we were saying, well, being smaller farmers, smaller economies, and being very vulnerable and exposed to risk, we deserve to have this preferential treatment. But the WTO sided with the dollar bananas, the Dole, then Monte, and Chiquita. We had to go also to Washington and negotiate, to try to establish lobbies. We paid a lobbyist, who was a lady married to Randolph Robinson. She was a Ross from St. Kitts. She went to school with me in Halifax, and she was our lobbyist. And we met with a lot of congressmen to ask, try and encourage them to side with us. But that was a big challenge. And despite all we did in terms of trying to improve productivity, we were never able to match the productivity levels of the dollar bananas.
That's where we saw the decline of bananas.
Yes, that's right. Where the prices in the market started going down, and we couldn't live on those prices. So these are some of our achievements and challenges during that period.
Well, let me tell you, as a Shillingford growing up, you would have had the opportunity to be different from the ordinary schoolboy. You didn't know how to maybe wash plates. Maybe you had a servant. You were not involved like the ordinary guy would have been involved. How did you get yourself into the whole circle of farming?
Well, if you know Stafford, my father, his attitude was always, you shouldn't be seen lazing around in his house. You must always find something useful to do. So go and help your mother in the kitchen, or go in the garden and do weeding, go and collect eggs in the fowl pen, go and harvest okras and tomatoes at our home. And when it's harvest during holidays, you wake up at 5 o'clock, you make yourself available to be driven up to Girondel, and you supervise the grapefruit harvest. And Hartley spoke about, Stafford, selling his grapefruit. So you had to supervise what went on in the field. You had to make sure that grapefruit that was harvested, the stalk of the fruit didn't come out from the fruit, and you had clippers. Then you had a template to determine no grapefruit smaller than a certain size and no grapefruit bigger than a certain size. So you had to check all that. Then in the field, you had to provide bags and ladders to the workers, and you had to learn how to manage a harvest. And there were times when the overseer went down at 4:30 to drop workers to Mon Prosper, where we got a lot of the Mon Prosper people worked at our farm. You know, if there was a truck available that had to go down to the packing shed, I had to bring down that truck at about 7 o'clock in the night and unload 120 crates of grapefruit, you know, load them onto the conveyors, which then went into the washing tanks, you know, and Hartley's father was a supervisor at the packing shed. You know, he knows what I'm talking about. And then you have to load up all the empty crates, and I had to drive the truck back up to Girondel and walk down at 9 o'clock, right? From Girondel to the Mon where we were living. You know, so I remember once my father bought a knapsack sprayer, and he told me to mount it up for him. So I mounted it up, and I went to tell him, Daddy, I'm finished, and there are a few extra parts. He told me, extra parts? I said, yes, Daddy. I got a calotte. And he told me, the white man don't make his knapsack sprayer to have extra parts. So I must have made an error and not put a part somewhere. So I mean, sometimes I used to be very resentful as to how my father treated me. When my fellow students were going to cinema, I couldn't go to cinema because he told me I'm a schoolboy, you know. But later in my life, all the training he gave me and, you know, what he exposed me to was for my betterment, you know. And I have no regrets to who I am, you know. He taught me to work hard, to work diligently. I remember once going with him with my maths book and asked him to help me with my maths. He told me, boy, the white man made his book so that they have examples in the book, understand the examples to know how to do the sums in the maths book. But I mean, I realized afterwards he didn't know how to help me. So I had to learn how to fend for myself, to be self-reliant, you know, in doing all my maths assignments. I asked him for a bike once because all my friends had bicycles. I told him, Daddy, can I get a bike?
You talk about all your Guajaba friends.
That's right. That's right. The Allins, the Burtons, everybody had bikes. I asked them, can I get a bike? He said, yes, if you come first. So I had to try to work hard to come first, and I never came first. I came second.
So you never got a bike?
I never got a bike. I went to play under 13 football in Windsor Park. Right? I used to score the most goals at under 13 level against mixed school, against boys' school. Right? I think there were 3 teams in that under 15, not under 13, under 15 competition. One day, my father came home upset. He said, Gregory, I want to talk to you. I said, what happened, Daddy? You embarrass me. I said, what do you mean I embarrass you? Why embarrass you? Well, one of my friends came to me and told me, Stafford, you are so successful, you have money from making money from grapefruit, and your son was the only boy playing football in the Windsor Park with a tennis shoe and not boots, and didn't have boots. And you can afford to buy boots for your son. He asked me, so how come you never asked me for boots? I said, but Daddy, you never gave me the impression I could approach you and ask for boots. He told me, he called me again and he beat me and told me, go to Astafans, by Wadi Astafans, opposite where Sylvia Johnson had a thing, you know where Norman Roll built that grey building and he had
Jupini.
Right, Jupini there.
Jupini
That's where Astafans was.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And he told me, go to Wadi and tell Wadi to give me a boots. When I went down there, the boots in them days was a black boots with a metal toe, right, underneath the leather. And then you had to buy pegs and go to a shoemaker to put on the leather pegs for you. And I played with the boots, but that boots was most uncomfortable. The best thing you could do with those boots was toe kick the ball. That's why fellas in them days was mainly toe kick, you didn't do side kicks and instep kicks and all them kind of thing. So that was my life. But as I say, I later in life I didn't regret that.
How was your life going by the river? Cooking mess.
Oh, that I used to do
Selling
that.
stone beer and big ass.
Yes, well, there used to be a time where fellas like Harry Cyril, right? The guys, what's their name? The Winstons, they used to live close to opposite Dominica there. And every time you had a hurricane, bad weather, and big ass used to come around, we used to get our catapult and go and hunt big ass. So you used to go in Windsor Park sometimes, or in Newtown Savannah, or in People's Park, and you have to say my first. So if you say you're first, you get first to shoot. As soon as you miss, is the next person, and so on. And then when you had storms and slopes were washed ashore underneath Fort Young there, we used to go and play Laje, cool wash Laje, and that was our upbringing. We learned to play soccer and cricket in People's Park, and at Christmas you used to buy your bandits, and I remember once they had some ladies, the Etiennes on King George V Street, very troublesome and always reporting you. And one day we planned for them and we burst bombs in their foot and we frightened them and we run. So a week later, my father called me and he said, so you think you were very smart? I said, what you talking about, Daddy? You burst bombs in the Etienne's thing and they were frightened, so I'm going to beat you. By God, one beating, boy, I regret having to go through bombs behind those ladies, boy. So we had a full life, all our friends in those days, we had a full life. We played sports. We used to accumulate under lampposts and talk. And I used to be the youngest among all those guys. Bigger guys like Joey Latig and Tony Latig and all those fellas. So
the names you're giving us is names of the elite.
That's right.
Class in Roso.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you had no time to mingle, or you couldn't mingle?
I couldn't mingle. I mean, my life was organized between you had to be home at 6 o'clock, When you reach home 6:05, you had a strap waiting for you on the bed. Right? And my father used to tell me, choose my strap. So when I started getting beatings, I said, well, if I get in beaten for 6:05 and 6:10, I start coming home at 7.
I like that.
Right? And there were other guys, not my same class, right, or same family type, but I had a great affinity for Lyman people, and we used to help them. My mother was somebody always helping, people. She sent many people to school, who didn't have, and I identified with that, what's the word, empathy that she had for poorer people. My mother used to be part of the administrators, as the word.
Was the mayor of the city of Roso, right?
My mother?
Yes, I'm asking.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm just asking.
She was a member of the council.
Uh-huh.
But the administrator used to have a program of helping people. And my mother was on his committee. She knew a lot of people in Roso and helped a lot of people. So I took from my mother's side rather than my father's side. Although my father sent many people to university. So besides...
They'll take a loan from him, right?
Not a loan. He gave them gifts and grants for them to go to school and university.
Question.
So
Yeah.
these are the values that I identified with.
Right. Whilst you were in the grammar school, were you ever a member of the cadet corps?
Yes, I was. I joined.
What
I
was
joined.
your- what was
I
your rank?
joined as a private, and I moved up the ranks to corporal, lance corporal, then sergeant to sergeant major.
You were sergeant major.
I was sergeant major. Yeah,
Okay. Who was commanding officer of that cadet corps?
it was Errol Walker.
Okay.
Errol Walker at one time, and before him was Mr. James from Portsmouth. He used-
Outside of sports and military,
yeah.
two back, rebellious,
Oh, yes.
docking classes.
I remember when Coppell established a pool table down where Cots was, and we used to make endless tobacco and go and play pool, man. You know, they didn't used to know where we were. I was about 13, 14 at that time. You know, and we used to go to school at the old grammar school. You know, that's days when they used to have that tambourine tree in the grammar school yard, and they used to send Egbert, the messenger, to go and pick whips when the headmaster had to cane guys. You know, so you had to, like everybody. I remember once they put me in the black book, and Mr. Crick from St. Vincent, he called me to say, Gregory, I see you're in the black book. Come for a caning. So I padded up. I put all kinds of kerchiefs in my back pocket, you know, and in anticipation of getting a good flogging. And when I went there, he said, Gregory, I can't flog you. I said, why, sir? Because I always come to your home and your father's estate for drinks and food, so I can't flog you. I say, but gee, boy's gonna give me hell over that, boy. You know? So,
And went to and told your daddy
yeah,
that you in the black books.
yeah. But I remember once where I was captain of grammar school football, and we played a match against Roundabout Crusaders. Adi Kazimi was the referee in Windsor Park, and that was on a Friday or Thursday.
Adi Kazim, who is this person?
Adi used to work
Court.
at CB's,
CB's too, man.
Oh, okay.
right? So the match was
That's the one who made 100+ years?
Who's
no,
that?
man, he's a dark fella.
He was a dark, slim fella, man.
He don't
Adi.
read the side, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
so
know him.
So the match was a very rough match, and as young boys we were not afraid of playing rough, you know. It was robust. They never called any foul on anybody, you know. For clear infringements, he would blow the foul award, a free kick and so on. So when we went to school Monday, Mr. Clark, we used to call him Peppy, he said that he got a report that the behavior of the grammar school was despicable and unbecoming DGS, and he wanted everybody to come up in front of assembly for a flogging. So you had fellas like Smokey, Sauce, Donald, Pepet, a number of fellas, man. So I tell them we're not going up in no assembly to take no flogging because we don't know what we're getting a flogging for. So Pepe said, the audacity of you refuse. Everybody come and see me in my office. So when he went to the office, he threatened everybody. If they don't take the flogging, they were expelled from school. So all those fellas saying, boy, okay, they'll take the flogging. All how I trying to tell them, no, let's stand up together. We're not taking no flogging. Those fellas, told me, Greg, see the reality, your father have money, our parents don't have money, so we can't afford to leave school. Right?
I like that one.
I said, you saw? So he flogged all of them. Then he said, Shillingford, I will flog you different because you're head boy. I say, sir, I am not taking no flogging. Right? Because that is not natural justice. We don't know what we've been flogged for. Right? So he told me, Shillingford, if you're not taking the flogging, leave school. So I said, okay, sir, I'll leave school. So whilst I walking home now, I was thinking of what I going to tell my father. And then I say, well, Gregory boy, you have to just face the music and talk the truth. When I reached home, I went up to his room. Right, he was resting in the afternoon after lunch, and I told him, Daddy, I'm expelled from school because I refuse a flogging, and I refuse it on the grounds that I don't know, and the boys that the headmaster already flogged don't know what they were being flogged for. I said to my father, besides that, we had Mr. Walker was our sports teacher. He was at the match, and he never told us he was going to report us. So on that basis, you can beat me, you can kick me, whatever it is, I'm not taking the flogging. You know what my father told me? He said, Gregory, you're lucky. The same thing happened to me when I was at school. So he called Keith Allen, and he made an appointment to go and see the headmaster on Saturday morning. Saturday, whilst I'm at home, my father called me from the grammar school to tell me, Gregory, put on your school uniform and come down to the school. When I went down to the school, the headmaster said, Gregory, Mr. Allen QC and your father was here. And I realized I made a mistake of flogging you all because I had no basis for that. I said, but sir, who reported us now? He told me Patrick John reported you all. I said, but sir, that is not the way. I mean, if a member of the public is not satisfied of our behavior, there's a way for you could go and tell the headmaster, but the headmaster is supposed to allow us to respond, you know? So you know what the headmaster told me? He said, Shillingford, I already flogged everybody. So I cannot not flog you. I have to flog you. Bend over. So I say, yes, sir, I'll bend over. The fella just touched me with his hand, pap, pap, and said, go along. That was the flogging I got. But I stood up for my students, my fellow colleagues. I stood up for justice. You understand, Cecil?
Yes. And you know, as you're saying that, you have a friend, Healer Cyril.
Harry Cyril.
Well, the person is H.I.
Yes.
Harry Cyril, big
Harry
guy.
Cyril.
It's H-I-L-L.
Yes.
Big ass,
Yes.
Harry big
Yeah.
ass.
Big
And he
ass.
says, hi, Gregory. Now is he saying, his Facebook name is different.
Yeah.
He says, hi, Gregory. This is Harry Cyril. I remember those days. I am right here in Dominica enjoying my holidays.
Wow.
What? Harry's here?
Yeah.
Big
What?
ass
I
is
didn't
here?
know Harry.
Big ass is here.
Harry must come and check me, man.
Harry big ass.
So
Yeah.
what you're saying is actually true. And,
Yeah.
and another person said, tell us about the Shillingford from High Street, Peterson footballer for Harlem Bomber,
Cleville.
and Herman the shoemaker.
Right. I think the Shillingford from High Street was Cleville, the goalkeeper.
Pepe?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Or maybe I can be better directed on that by somebody.
The person said, tell us about the Shillingford from High Street, Peterson footballer for Harlem Bombers.
Yeah. On High Street.
And Herman
Remember
the shoemaker.
Cleville had a tire business,
Oh yes, But he said a shoemaker.
a shoemaker. I don't know.
So I don't know. The person maybe can send us some more information to help us.
Yeah, maybe they can, yeah.
Yeah. No. Gregory, we know in those days. Anything you want to say about school? Before I go to the other one, let's take a telephone call quickly.
Yes.
Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, Gabriel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Remember, you last 400 Peter Shillingford. Never do that stop.
Stout.
Stout, yeah, I remember that name, yeah.
Just Jackson, and the Aaron.
Yes.
That no man the long people now.
I remember the name Stout, yes.
This is before Harlem,
Yes.
what his brother was talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Gregory, I want to find out, in reference to school in those days, how did the teachers treated you versus the ordinary boy that didn't have breakfast or didn't have what is required to survive like you? How were they treated?
Well, I know that teachers recognize, based on the family you came from, you did get better treatment, right, from the teachers. But at the end of the day, remember that you were expected to do well if you wanted to get a scholarship to go away. And also, if you know, I mean, based on research, we know that children who came to school hungry didn't do as well as children who came to school with their belly full.
Just hold that full. Let's hold that footer full.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the telephone quickly. Good evening to you, caller.
Yeah. Good evening, Greg. Boy, that's awesome conversation, bro. Enough memories.
Yes.
I think the Shillingford High Street was Tom, Owen. Remember Owen?
Owen, yeah, I remember Owen, yes.
Yeah. Stout and the man footballers
Yeah.
from Harlem.
Yes.
That was that tradition there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I enjoy
okay.
the conversation, bro. Love history. Give thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah.
My brother Zed.
Zed.
Yeah.
No,
Good
before
evening
you
to Zed.
before you go, I remember the incident. I was at the grammar school. Early days. Gregory, you were head boy of the grammar school, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
You were sixth form. You were in sixth form.
Yes.
Right. Okay, I remember. Because we all looked up to these guys. And when you were in sixth form at the time, you were Lord of Monarch of all you survey, because you're the elites of the group, especially with his Shillingford title.
No. As we were talking about the preferential treatment that you would have received. So continue.
But based on first going to school in Roso, where the university is now, the old grammar school, you
Talking about All Saints University.
All Saints University. That's where the grammar school first was, from my knowledge, right? Where I attended. I went there at 9 years old, and I think based on my mother's intervention, they were able to put on an extra form, first form, because the school used to start from second form. But my mother did some research among her friends and different families, and they found that there were a lot of younger people who came out of convent and other schools who needed to go to school, and we were 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old. I think entrance to grammar school at the time was 11 plus. And she was able to lobby with the headmaster to put on a form. So if it wasn't because of her being Mrs. Shillingford, I don't think they would have put that on. So at least you would say that there was direct preferential treatment for people with family names and so on. I remember at that time you had about 2 or 3 Shillingfords, you had Caligrins, you had Dupinis, a guy, Dupini, the contractor, he was among that thing. You had the Buntins, you had Willis, deceased, you had Hartley, so all those names I have called, were names of civil servants and business people, agriculturists and so on. You had what's his name? Avon Shillingford's son. I forget his name. He's since dead. So we went to first form. But if you've infringed, various laws at school or practices at school, or you were guilty of misbehavior, that didn't exempt you from getting flogged, Because I got a flogging in second form where Alwyn Bully, who was my seat mate, got up to ask a question, and I sharpened a pencil and put it up. And as he sat down, he sat down on the pencil, and he almost hit the roofing pin. I had to go to the headmaster and get 12 strokes, immediately because of that. Family name couldn't save me then because I did nonsense.
Let's go back to the telephone quickly, Gregory. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Joseph.
Good evening.
And also your panel. Mr. Joseph.
Yes, sir.
I've been calling since in the week. The radio station is having a lot of grinding on your station.
Okay.
I've been calling for the week. They said that they have got it. This morning it was a bit better, but tonight get back doing the same thing.
Okay. So what I'll have to do.
What I'll have to do.
Okay. What I'll have to do, I will have to speak to the technician tomorrow morning. It's 104.1, right?
Yeah. I think I get in you all.
Or 103.5.
Yeah. Something like that.
Okay. All right.
Anytime you speak in, like you're saying woo, and then coming back.
You can try 104.7.
Uh-huh.
If you can try 104.7 because I know you're calling from the Tebow area.
Yeah. That's why I always taking note of what I'm taking. And then I start calling you back. But I called you this morning and it was much better, but it come back when it's tonight.
Okay, then thanks. Yeah, I'll inform the technician about that. Thank you very much for the information.
I following up.
Thank you. No, Gregory, go ahead.
Yeah, so as I said,
so you put the pencil up
on the Alwyn's bottom.
On the Alwyn.
Alwyn. Oh, you're talking about Alwyn Bully.
Yes. And as he sat down on the sharp pencil, and I mean, I heard one screeching, and the boy, Alwyn, my brother was in pain, and I regret I did that. I mean, I say, Gregory, boy, what shit you did there, boy? And the master told me, go to the headmaster immediately. I got 12 strokes. But I felt, well, I did nonsense. I had to just take my 12 strokes. So I'm saying that to say...
How many times yourself and Bully spoke about that?
Well, I spoke to Colin about that after Alwyn died. Alwyn and I never spoke about that because immediately I apologized to him. Because Alwyn and I was very close. When Alwyn started dabbling in making carnival costumes, I was his assistant, because I had some mechanical skills, in cutting metal, bending it, and making parts at his direction. We were very close. I always used to be at Alwyn's house, and Alwyn and them had a little pond. We used to fish for guppies and tilapia in the pond. I don't know if it's tilapia, but anyway, whatever fish it was at the time, we used to get pins and bend the pins and make hooks.
That is the pond of his uncle, John.
No. Charles Bully on King George V Street there. Inside the yard had a pond.
Okay.
And just beyond the pond was a wall where we used to jump the wall to go by.
Jason to Donny Boyd, well, I should say, former speaker deceased, yes. Alex Boyd Knight's parents' home.
Yes, but we used to jump the wall and go by Alex's home. Alex's mother was a Shillingford.
Right, yes.
And they had a bakery there.
Correct.
So we used to jump that wall because my cousin...
As a matter of fact, years later, Hazel Shillingford, Ricketts' mother,
yes.
Mrs. Spear, lived in that same house.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. So we used to jump from Alwyn's house whenever I used to go by Alwyn, and that used to be every day. So we were very good friends. And I apologize because I really didn't intend for him to be hurt. So, but we were very close. Very close. And we were also close to Jeffrey Boyd and Alex. Alex was older than us. Alex was at the age of Barbara Bully, who was Alwyn's sister. Right? Colin was much bigger. By that time, I think Colin had went away to school in St. Augustine. But Olin and I he was about a year or two older than me. So...
Now, in those days, Gregory, the elite class, the bourgeois class as we normally call them, the fortunate class, in reference to church, they used to pay for their pew.
Yes.
Your family by any chance did this?
No.
When you went to church, you were
from
sick
the
anyway?
time I was born, I never saw my father go to church. So I asked him, Daddy, why don't you go to church? He told me, well, he has gone to enough church, and I now have to go on his behalf. Right? My mother went to Methodist church, but I was baptized in the Catholic church. And I went to convent. So every week we used to have to go, the convent used to march and go to confession. And then you used to have a system of where they would give you a star. You had a little book of stars, and if you were the student that accumulated the most stars, you got a prize and all kind of thing. So as boys, we used to devise all kinds of tricks to get stars in our book. So if, let's say, you live in home 7:30 to go to school, you just pass in the church. You see who was the priest that said it was ending mass at the time around 8 o'clock. And you go to school and you say, so-and-so said mass, and you get a star and so on, you know. And then they used to have nuns. Nuns used to hold your nose and hold your ears and twist your nose. A lot of those Belgian nuns and fellas, at the time, I was 10, 11 years old, we couldn't take that. One day we got googloos from one of them palm trees, and we rub it until it was, as the nun was passing, we put the hot googloo on the thing, and the nun bawl. And we told her, don't dare come and pull our nose and twist our ears again. So even from those days, you know, we had the tendencies of being very, you know, rebellious.
Some person say wicked.
Yes, wicked too, yes, wicked too, because they used to do wicked things to us too, you know. So it was like a pushback.
So your father didn't go to church, but your mom always went to church.
Yes, but a different church.
Methodist.
Yeah, Methodist. Yes.
And you said that you were Christian in the Catholic Church?
Yes, in the Catholic Church, yeah.
And you went to a Catholic school?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to know, Gregory, in reference to the Lakous in Roso, all right, you spoke of Alex Boyd Knight, back wall where you're jumping.
Yeah.
Now, there were a number of Lakous in Roso. From River Street, you can start the Lakou from River Street, get into Astafans.
Yeah.
Your experience as a boy growing up, the elite son of the Shillingford, Shillingford clan, did you do any of passing of the shortcuts in Roso? Of course.
There was a shortcut by what's that place? Opposite ACS there, where the insurance company is. There was a shortcut there going towards that lane. The lane with where
Virgin Lane?
No, not Virgin Lane. There was it went
Castle
to
Street?
No, man. From King George V Street, there was a lane passing to go by the Giros. There was a shortcut passing to go by the Giros.
That's Fields Lane?
Yes, Fields Lane. So I always used to pass in that lane. Then there was
actually that Cock Street area had about 3 shortcuts.
Yes. Then there was another lane opposite the church. Not a shortcut, but there was a Lakou there, Lakou Philip.
So Lakou, you say Lakou Philip, I'm trying. Yes. Oh my God, it just came out from my mind.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Not Setlang.
There were some guys used to play basketball for academy, the Winstons. They used to live in that Lakou, and
For Maiko.
Yes.
For Maiko.
And then my dada used to live in Formico there, so I always used to go there to her. Right, then when I was a young boy and we used to have carnival with the Laters and the Astafans, there was a Lakou of Virgin Lane going up behind the Astafans garage and their home there.
Bath Road. From Virgin Lane to go to enter Bath Road.
That's right. So I used to pass through that Lakou.
Well, you're a coward fella, man. You know,
I wouldn't say I was a coward because I had friends.
Right.
I had friends all over.
But that was by passing close to Mabontu, going
I
across.
think so. Yes.
Where Mikey Bruni has his office.
That's right.
On Virgin Lane there.
Right.
Yes.
Bath Road, sorry. And then we're getting into.
And I remember, I don't know, Adams, if you remember they had some short fellas used to do boxing for Dominica.
Yes.
They live on Bath Road.
They were living on Virgin Lane.
Virgin Lane.
Right, in that Lakou right there.
Oh, yes.
Them short fellas.
They used to be living in the middle. As soon as you pass Koi, the Abrahams.
Yes.
Getting across there.
Yes, that's
right.
I'm trying to remember if it's Cobra or the name. I'm trying to remember the name.
Short fella. I know you're
Yeah.
talking
Short
about
fellas,
Yes.
man. I remember once, I don't know if it was in Windsor Park or it was in grammar school, they had a boxing, what do you call it? Tournament or something like that, and those fellas were performing. And in those days, you used to feel those fellas were the best, man. You know? But they didn't have the professional training of boxers of today, you know? But we were all proud of them. You know?
Can I ask him a question? Seeing that we're in the Lakou area there,
Yeah.
did you ever go and read or in the gardens? Did you
Of
ever?
course.
I was going to ask him that one.
Of course.
So you went to the gardens and steal the people fruits?
Of course. But the main thing we used to steal was pomerac and oranges and all them kind of things. But that was all boys going to convent, and during holidays you passing through the gardens to go under power. Right? And even underneath grammar school there, underneath the wall,
Yes.
they had a, what they call it, not a bushy winner, something, I forget the name. But fellas, bigger boys used to caution you about going there. And when you live in home...
To Wuchet?
Sikwi or
Sikwi.
Abasikwi. Yeah.
Basikwi,
Yeah.
right? Now, when you live in home, you can't tell your mother is in the river you go in, you know. So you're not living in a bath suit, but when you pass by where Union Club used to be. I used to go by Ronald Shillingford and borrow a bath suit and realize that is the worst thing I could do. Because when I borrowed the bath suit, I got crabs.
You got an injection?
For crabs? But you had to go, in those days, you had to go by dispensary.
And get your
blue butter.
and get blue
butter. Yeah,
Blue
boy.
butter.
Babe yourself.
But given who my father was, I dare not go and raise my hand and say, I want a pound of blue butter.
You had to send somebody.
No. I say, well, let me look around my house. So my father had a can of DDT. I say, well, if that chemical can kill insects, maybe it can kill the thing. You tell me, go and spray DDT on myself. Next thing, all my skin start to peel. And when you go to school, fellas see you itching and scratching, and they tell you, tram, the bells are marching. And you cannot hide that you have crabs, because fellas who get that already know all the symptoms. I mean, when you went to grammar school, you got good education, you know.
But you're pure Shillingford.
Boy.
Jam, the crabs are marching.
Jam, the crabs are matching. Those days there was no injection.
No injection. You had to spray. You had to shave. And when you feel you're trying to, you have a tweezer and a light trying to pick off all little eggs.
Black
But I
eggs.
tell you, boy, you're wasting time. But it's blue butter you have
Blue
to
butter,
use.
boy.
Yeah, boy.
Gregory, I never know. I mean, give it that story. People might call you Jam tomorrow. You know?
I don't mind. I'm not ashamed, you know, partner.
Jam.
The crabs are matching.
The crabs are matching.
The crabs are matching.
But after that happened to you once, it never happened to you again, because you learn your lesson.
But you have your cousin there laughing, you know, on Facebook. And Georgiana Charles is there laughing too.
Yes, I mean.
Everybody laughing. Jacinta Ban is there laughing you.
Yes.
Crab, what's it? Jam.
The crabs
are
are
matching.
But let me give you a joke. As Lauren, right? We used to go in Sparrow Yard. Albert, myself, and a few other fellas.
Albert Astafans.
No, Albert Shillingford,
Albert Shillingford.
our cousin. So those days we used to go under your father's bed and pull out a spring, part of the spring, and make a little catapult. We used to go by Edwards and by BBs And then we used to have a little lodger in the house, in the yard. One team close to the gate on Cock Street, and the other team close to the mango tree. And boy, I don't know who it is, but one day we fire in our catapults and BBs, and a BB went in somebody's eye, you know. I don't know if Lauren remember that. But all those nonsense we used to do as boys, you know.
They're not easy.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, I like that one, you know.
And I remember...
Jam, the crabs are matching.
When you see, fella, when you see the first day you go to school as a young boy, your mother making sure that you have a haircut, you know, a low haircut. And when you enter school, it's like what do you call it, fellas on each side, and as you pass in, you get colored from each side of the thing, you know, from bigger fellas than you. And pulling your pants. You never experienced that cultural thing of pulling your pants in school?
Yeah, man.
When fellas laughing you?
All man went for that.
Yeah, boy.
All man went for that.
That was the highlights of school, you know.
See that? Roy Seja said, jam, the crabs are matching. A nice one.
Yes, boy. Yeah.
So everybody in the social media now literally laughing out their hearts.
But that is how growing up was.
Yeah. Gregory.
Yes?
Did you ever, when you go on the power, were the fellas trying to find out what was happening to each boy? Did you ever experience that?
No.
You never had theta?
You never had theta?
Yes, I used to hear about that, but
you never tried theta?
No, I never got theta.
You never tried theta?
No.
You never curious?
No, never.
Trying?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Why?
I wasn't convinced, and my bigger friends, fellas older than me, they didn't convince me that you try to use it, you know, for endowment.
No, Gregory, as a boy going to grammar school, for sure you'd have girls. You're a Shillingford, girls around you. Handsome, well-built, tall, girls around you. What was the experience like?
Boy, for a number of fellas older than you, right? I used to hear fellas like Richie Hill, Ronald Osborne, Boomsy Charles, all those older fellas talking about chicks, Sharp Elwin, Henry Elwin, right? We used to be talking about chicks. But as a younger fella, your main thing was do your work and play your sports, and you were doing all sports. So you didn't have time for girls. I mean, I used to be walking up King George's Street, 5th Street, or walking up Virgin Lane. I mean, I used to be afraid of girls. I was afraid to approach girls. I was very shy. Girls I say I like, I'm afraid to talk to them. That's how I grew up. But little did I know, I mean, they had girls that used to like me, you know. You know, so until you get older, you realize, well, you know, you could check girls. And I remember once making a fool of myself. We used to have what you call school dance, right? Brother Estrada used to organize school dance for all the schools, Wesley High School, Grammar School, Convent High School. Swinging Stars used to play for us. So I was checking a girl from Newtown, you know, and when she reached home and she tell me good light, I tell her just so, then that's all. So I say, well, I can't kiss you. So she said, no, next time. When I went to school Monday morning, fellas come in and pull in my pants, telling me, can I kiss you? I don't know how them fellas hear that. The girl must have gone spread that.
So go on, Gregory. Let me tell you, Gregory. You have a competition. There's a competition, but which one you must call Gregory? Jam. The crabs are matching. Can I kiss you? Can I kiss you? Gregory. Boy, Gregory. So fellas get to know that you didn't get a kiss that night.
Exactly.
So she put that on you.
She put that on me. Boy.
Boy,
It was not easy.
that is something else,
Something
Gregory.
I'm telling you. Could you imagine that you would ever think that could happen to you?
Yeah, what somebody said?
Yeah.
You were Shillingford guy and you were shy.
Yes, I was shy.
Boy,
I grew up being shy, you know.
you have not the carom laughing you, boy. But everybody, Georgia Chaz laughing you. Just say, Gregory killing me there, boy, Houston. Boy, Jesus, bon Dieu, Gregory, did not know you were that funny. But Gregory, that is something else.
That was something else.
Gregory.
But it's true, you know, Greg, what you're saying. The fellas would, when you go to school dance, fellas, they're watching to see whether a girl will dance with you or not. Eh?
Yeah.
They're marking you, you know.
Yeah.
Because
No,
next day,
how did they know the girl said to Gregory?
well, maybe they-
The girl had to go and tell somebody that.
She maybe tell a good girlfriend of us.
and they tend to tell everybody. Boy.
And I suspect Gregory never talked to her after that.
No, I spoke to her after that, but I said, I mean, me and her never did nothing, you know. I was trying hard. Right?
Boy, that is something else, you Gregory.
Real boy at school, boy, school is something else, boy.
You know, like they ever say, nice fellas never succeed. I was too nice.
Boy, Gregory, you're not easy.
Boy, very interesting.
No, but as I say, I mean, growing up,
I'll kiss you next time.
growing up,
I'll kiss you next time.
growing up,
Very
we had fun. We grew up. We could never. Our life was never
Boring.
nerdish. It was pure fun, right? Sports, social things, you know.
What about by the bay? Bay life.
By the bay.
Bay life, yeah.
Well, remember where I live at Fort Lynn was, 2 minutes from the bay, you know. The two features I enjoyed living in Fort Lynn is that when you went by the bay, you go and fish for moeng,
Yes.
right? And also when both Angus Edwards and Neville Edwards and Robin Osborne, they used to make dinghies, so we used to go sailing. So I learned to sail going by the bay. You sailing from Roso up to Newtown and back, and you hunting, you going fishing, you learn how to make your fresh. You getting crabs that used to be crawling on the stones. You capture them and you ground them up and
The tululu, them tululus?
yes, them tululu. You throw them in the sea as fresh to attract your fish. And we used to do lots of fishing. Whenever it had rain, we used to make little sailboats and race them in the gutter with water rushing down, going to the sea. When it's bad weather, used to go on the bayfront and duck in waves. And as Harry Cyril and me used to be ducking waves on the bayfront. The other thing we used to do is flying kites. You know, up to 2 days ago, my wife told me, Gregory, let's do some kite flying. I said, that's when I was young, but I'm not doing that again. But you used to go by Max Karam, mother or grandmother. She had a shop there. And you used to buy your Fred. You used to go by C.G. Phillips and buy your kite paper.
Yes.
Then
yes.
you take your cocoa and double it. You reverse the big side with the small side.
You have,
and
to clean you have to clean the cocoa first.
yeah, you clean the cocoa, that's right. And you make your kites, all
Yes.
different kind of kites. You know? And you have to learn how to fly your kites. Next thing you lose
Prevent
your
the cool
kite.
tet.
That's right.
You have to put paper inside of
Paper
it to send a
inside,
message.
that's right.
No cool tet.
Yeah, and we used to take flour and water as our glue.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
We grew up doing those things. And People's Park used to be our famous place for flying our kites.
But Gregory, you live the same life that I lived.
Yeah, man. How
You
you
know,
mean?
that's amazing. You know, Gregory, a bourgeois, and Cecil poor. We live the same
boy.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
Did you ever make tops? Did you ever?
Of course. We used to have larger tops. So
Yeah, larger tops.
You spin your top and fellas taking, taking thing on your top.
Yeah, fee.
Yeah, feed, that's right, you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you lived in
also
that.
we used to go and hunt birds. We used to have our catapults and go and hunt birds. You know, you get about 2 dozen birds and you take off the feathers and, you know, the hair on the belly. And
Was bamboo place a funny place for you? Bamboo house.
I tell you, I didn't have chicks at the time, so I never went in the bamboo place in the gardens.
Boy, don't let guys your age hear you, man.
Huh?
Don't let guys your age hear
The
you.
man was on the heavy manners, you know.
I never used to. Let me tell you something. I remember in the early days of my life, on a Sunday afternoon, you used to go and promenade in the gardens. And then I discovered, when me and Rosie used to be liming in Montreal, Rosie told me that when they came to Roso to go to school, their father bought cameras for each of them. So when they asked their father, what is that for? They say, well, that is for when you go in the gardens, like every bourgeois, the people, children, you have to have your camera to take pictures, right? So the reason his father was telling him that was because when Rosie came back from Africa one day, and he put up a picture of Nkrumah in his mother's restaurant. He went somewhere, and when he came back a week later, he didn't see the picture of Nkrumah in the restaurant. So he said to his mother, Mom, where's my picture? The mother told him, go and ask your father. So when he went to the father told him, I bought cameras for you like any other bourgeois people, children, for you and Mike to go and take pictures in the gardens when you promenade in the gardens on Sunday. But you never took a picture of me and I gave you cameras, right? But you bring a man from Africa picture to put in my restaurant. He said, well, I took it, I went on the edge of the jetty, I tear it up and I throw it in the sea, right? So I used to go in the gardens, right, on a Sunday afternoon with my nana. That was the job of your nana, to bring you in the gardens, you know, to go and play and to socialize. So I lived that type of life too, as well as life of ordinary people.
So in your time, there were characters in Roso. Who do you remember?
Well, under ERI's Shillingford shop, you had Iris and Kakala used to live under the shop. I remember them putting water in the barrels, the empty barrels of rum, and letting it soak and shaking it and then turning it over and getting thing and drinking in the night, and they were always drunk. Then they had other fellas. There was a guy used to be a rubbish collector. I forget his name. A dark fella, man, with big grab jams. I forget his name. I remember that fella. Then Ugly Willie. You know, I witnessed Ugly Willie drinking from the gutter, and Ugly Willie never gets sick. You know? And there were a lot of other characters.
You know Tinkaka? Remember Tinkaka?
I don't remember that name. That must be after I had left Dominica. But they used to have a guy. He used to work for Town Council. He was like a warden. And I remember he used to ring the bell and give announcements.
Solomon.
And Solomon was a fearful fellow. When Solomon used to be coming around, and if you, as a young boy, you're not at home and you're lying under a street light talking with other friends, you had to run and disappear, you know. Everybody was afraid of Solomon. He had on his khaki clothes and his hose was up to his knee. And he had his cane.
And his funny hat.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, boy. These were characters in Roso. And Charlie Moe and all those fellas. You know? Yeah,
and Muzi and
that's
well,
right.
Muzi was after.
Yeah.
Muzi was after.
Yeah,
Lakou was after.
Yeah.
You know? But you had Iris Capola, as you said.
Yeah.
And Morris.
Yeah.
You know? It's quite a number of them.
Yeah, man.
What about this guy, Harold Makaxida?
Who's that?
Harold Makaxida. They said he went to England.
Oh, yes, man. Harold when he came back from England, he bought a piece of land in the heights overlooking Soufriere there, Gallio. He bought a house there. And then Sibo and Grayson got to meet Harold and get him to sponsor Cavaliers. So I think his name was Boga. Buga. So we named the team Buga's Cavaliers. So wherever we used to be going, he used to be with us and he sponsored our team. He sponsored Cavaliers. You know, our first match was played where there used to be a park close to where NBD is down there in Kenfield. There was a park there with some big salmon trees. And we played our first match there against a team from Maho. You know, so Boga, I remember Boga because many times we went up to Gallia to visit his home, that he had bought a home up there. But Grayson and Sibo was closer to him than I was. Yeah.
No, Gregory, you would have known of some of the poverty that was taking place during your period during your period at school at the Dominica Grammar School.
Yes, oh yes.
Give us an understanding as to how this was.
Well, you could see it reflected in, the guys who couldn't change their shirt or their pants on a daily or twice weekly basis, you know. The fellas who didn't have books, who didn't bring recess to school, you know, and I remember never wanting to see if I in class with somebody and they don't have recess. I used to buy recess for them, you know. And you know, that these were things that greatly impacted my feelings, you know, to see that my school mates who I would play with in school with, do things in school with them, games, sports and games, and not have. And I would feel funny that my mother and father could provide me with, and they didn't have, you know. So it affected me a lot. And I remember, always having to tell fellas, I'll buy recess for you and that kind of thing. You know, my father used to bring down truckloads of bananas, green bananas, grapefruit and all that. Fellas always used to come by me for bananas, for fruits and vegetables. I used to be giving that away. Until one day my mother told me I can't do that. I said, why? But they don't have. You know? So it was because you felt that it was nice to be meeting, you know, other students, you know, but when they couldn't do things you were doing, you felt funny, you know? And it wasn't a nice feeling.
No, Gregory. I want to find out from you, because you were also the CEO of Cricket West Indies.
Yes.
How did you reach that milestone? How was that possible?
Well, you had Steve Kamash was CEO of Cricket West Indies, and he was retiring. And at the time you had Pat Roso, who was chairman, and Clavis Joseph from Antigua was vice president. Roso was president. And they had advertised for the team manager. And that is the job I applied for. But the cricket committee, in reviewing all the applicants, decided to give Ricky Skerritt, who was last, before Shallow, he became president of Cricket West Indies. They gave him the job as team manager. And that team was going to England. Now, I was working at DBMC at the time, and I was leaving DBMC. So I said, well, as my next job, let me apply to be team manager. Because
That was what year?
That was 19... 2000. So I went for an interview in Antigua, and Roso and Clavis Joseph and Jackie Hendricks interviewed me. So Roso asked me, well, what did I do? I said, well, I'm general manager of DBMC. He said, really? I said, yes. So he said, but Shilling, as manager of DBMC, you have to manage a lot more variables than the variables of managing Cricket West Indies. So if you can manage that and you also manage your own farm, then you must know something about management. Because as I said, you know, in cricket, you maybe have about 5 or 6 variables to manage: development, operations, you know, player development and finance and so on. But when you're managing a farm and managing a farming business, you have almost 25 or more variables you have to manage. So they told me, well, let Skerrit be the manager of the team. And why don't you become the CEO of Cricket West Indies? I said, okay. So I had to wait about 3 months because with the team away and everybody traveling, you know, they couldn't contact me. So anyway, when the summer was finished and the team returned from England and Roso also returned from traveling, I was then appointed CEO. So these were the circumstances based on my prior experience of managing at DBMC, you know, and helping my father manage our farm. That was the basis on which I became. Also, I was a cricketer at grammar school, you know, so I had knowledge of cricket, you know. So that was how I became CEO of Cricket West Indies.
Knowledge of cricket, the ability to play cricket, did you play this in the yard or did you play it at the school level?
Both. In the yard. We used to play in the yard of Afi Mattel's father's yard. From in the street, we used to have our run-up from in the street. And there was a yard, and we used to open the gate, and we used to bat inside that restricted access there. So I played in that yard. I played in Fort Lynn. The Latigs had a little veranda which was at ground level, and we used to run up and bowl and bat in the yard there. Also, I played at grammar school. I learned soccer at Union Club. There was a McIntyre man who was a coach. He coached us in soccer. And we used to go in the Windsor Park. Days of going in the Windsor Park where you have how much pig games going on, almost 25 pig games going on. You know, fellas like Pishy and Lakou and those fellas used to be batting for a whole week. We used to also play Saki Tape in the grammar school, the old grammar school. So all these were my foundational things. And then we started playing competitive cricket. We had a gang of guys from Roso. We used to play cricket at the morning on Libla's lawn. You know.
All right.
And then I played for grammar school. You know, when guys like Brinsley Charles and Chaucer Doctrove and all those fellas left school, I was much younger than them. I then got my turn to play for grammar school. You know.
Now, Gregory, you know that in those days we didn't have the kind of balls that was required to make us become real good cricketers and bats. But you came from an elite family. You came from a family who have economic prowess. How did you compare yourself with those guys who were playing with oranges and taking tape to play cricket? How did you compare yourself with those guys?
Well, remember, if you were playing in the yard, we used to use tennis balls. We used to get the old tennis balls from Dominica Club or Union Club and use for playing in the yard. Well, at school, we used to practice with cocked balls. When you went to play a match, you use leather balls. So it wasn't a case of if you were from a well-to-do family, you had the ability to buy balls because you could buy a ball. I remember when you went to when you went to People's Park to play, and you were playing Sakitape, you come with your bat, you may have your ball. When you go to bat and you out, okay, you bowl to try to bat again. But if I remember guys who had their bat, when they couldn't get to bat at all for any long period, they would take their bat and go. And the game had to end.
That happened in every generation.
That's right.
Every generation.
Yeah. You know, so these were fellas that were privileged that had their bat, but my father never gave me bat, he never gave me ball. I used to go and play cricket with the policemen who used to be quartered at Fort Young. Every afternoon they used to call my home. You know, in those days, you pick up your phone and the operator come on and say, number please that you want to call. So those fellas used to call my father's house. Our number was 195. And ask my father if I can come and bowl to them at Fort Young. I don't know what I used to do, but I used to bowl an away swinger. And they felt that was good, so I used to go and practice them as a little boy. You know? But when it came to playing Sakitape at People's Park, you know, who own their bat, and if they out quickly and they vex, they take their bat and gone. Or who bring their ball and they take their ball and gone.
How many times you took your bat and go?
I never took a bat because I never had a bat. As I told you, I never had boots, you know, when I was playing. My father used to be busy on his estate. My father never saw me play sports, you know.
Wow.
Never saw me play sports.
You're so busy on the estate.
That's right.
Thinking of money.
No, he had a job at Banana Association. He had a job at Juicy Factory. So I came to appreciate that.
You had shares in those places?
He had shares in Juicy Factory. But Banana Association, he was the manager.
Let's hear what that person has to say to you. Good evening to you, caller.
Cecil,
Yes.
that was you.
Yes.
Yes.
You were famous for that to take your bat and ball and go.
I said all generations did that.
All generation.
Yes, I did it.
Yes. Yeah, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So now, Gregory, so sports was in you.
Yes.
At that time, not just the Shillingfords, but guys your age were very much
that's
involved.
right, guys my age, yeah.
Very much involved in sports.
Yeah, very much involved in sports. Yeah.
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Seeing that you was the general manager of Cricket West Indies, right? Did you see any progress when you were there, moving from one stage to the next?
Well, when I went there, that was in 2000. And we had already begun to see a decline. And there was a program that Cricket West Indies had started, which was retainer contracts for players who, if they were not playing tests or one days, they would come home and go and do stints with schools, coaching with schools and so on. So when I went in there, I noticed, I was briefed that there was that program, but the players never used to go to schools. I mean, they were just drawing the money and not going to schools. So when I made contact with my ICC colleagues, like especially Jim Sutherland, who was Chief Finance Officer at Cricket Australia, he explained about the retainer program that they had in Australia, and I tried to introduce that, but unsuccessfully because Whipper's officials were members of the team and they didn't want to be engaged in negotiations for retainer contracts whilst they were in Australia. So that was deferred, and then we never really got to introduce it. But there was a sense where when I was at Cricket West Indies, I introduced the whole idea of fitness and training, physical training and physical testing as a feature. We never used to formally do that, although before I went there, the guy, what's his name, Witt, the Australian, he was in charge of preparing the team for fitness for games. And that I had seen it myself. That used to be like a spectacle. Spectators used to come to see West Indies practice just because of their training exercises. You know, guys used to run from hotels to grounds, and when they did catching, they did almost 500 catches at a practice, you know, and throw down the wickets. I mean, and then we declined, right? And it was my, you know, mission to try to maintain the glory days. And we won a couple matches against South Africa. We won, you know, some matches against England, but we lost more than we won. But so my percentage winnings as CEO was about 0.44, meaning 44 matches in 100, you know, that kind of ratio. But we also had financial problems, you know, because in those days it was coming to the end of bilateral tours. Because when we used to go to England, they used to pay us. England used to pay us a share of gate receipts or a share of returns that they would have accrued. But when I came in, the ICC changed over to what you call the FTP, the Future Tours program, where they felt with new members coming on that you had to entertain tours from emerging nations like Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka and so on and so forth. But what we found during the period is that you only made money when England and India came to the West Indies. So when New Zealand came to the West Indies, you couldn't even sell your TV rights, you know, for any valuable amount. It's only when you played India you were able to sell for a valuable amount. And England, you know, and everywhere else you lost money. So from then we had to arrange to play England and India more frequently, so that when we got a big surplus from India and England, it was able to help us to balance off the lineage where you had Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe and South Africa and so on. So it was a real challenge.
As you're on that, I'll come to that in a while. I just want to tell you what Yvonne Amos said. Well, Gregory, you have missed your calling. You are a natural storyteller, very informative and entertaining.
Yeah.
That's what Yvonne Amos said to you. Now, someone wants to find out. Sam Kelly asked, who were the main players on the West Indies during your stint as CEO?
Well, the main players when I was at Cricket West Indies was obviously Courtney Walsh, because he was captain whilst I was there. A good player, the wicketkeeper, Ridley Jacobs was very good. Brian Lara was very good. And Ambrose was very good. You know, Haynes played his last number of years when I just joined Cricket West Indies. He was great. You know, so these were the main players.
I realized that you said great players and great. No, great players and very good. What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that great players are guys whose special performances, you know, led to breakthrough results. And there were other guys that were steady. Like, for example, you had guys like Ranji Nanan played for West Indies whilst I was there. He was a steady player, a good regional player. He took some wickets, but he was not a great player to have won many matches for us. But guys like Lara, Courtney Walsh, Curtly Ambrose, you know, even you know, these were the guys that won matches. You know, had the distinction when Courtney took 519th wicket. I awarded him a cap for the 519th wicket he took, you know, and that was against South Africa. You know, so there's a big difference between good players and great players.
And while being the CEO at that time of Cricket West Indies, which team did you see besides your West Indies team? Which team did you love to see play?
I like to see South Africa, England. I think we had got the measure of England. They were doing better than us because they had developed a better development program, but they were not as exciting like some of the South Africans, right? The Indians had some steady guys, but I thought the South Africans at the time, when I was there, the 2 years I was there, they were the team that impressed me the most, you know. You had the Pollocks, you had the Antinis, you had the Callis, you know, you had the openers, Kirsten and the other guy, I forget his name.
A black guy.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah. You know, these fellas were
Antini.
These fellas were a thing, man. I remember that I arranged for a match in Montserrat to assist with the, you know, rehabilitation of Montserrat, build up people's spirits of bringing South Africa to play a match against Select 11, the UWE Vice Chancellor's 11. And we went over on a boat, on a ferry. And the Australians were standing on the deck and the boat was rolling. My wife and myself and Red Sperero were sitting in the seats in the cabin, and we were getting sick, and those Australians were standing on the deck as though they were regular sailors. And, you know, these were tough fellas who could take the sailing, no puking, no nothing. I mean, you had to admire that, you know, whilst our players were sick right through. Yeah. So those kinds of characteristics, you know, and, you know, the character of those players impressed me. You know, it told me that is how our players should be: tough, you know, mentally prepared and resilient to various social conditions and things like sailing on a boat, you know, and not getting sick. You know, that was a gap for us.
You never saw in your development that you would have been involved in West Indies cricket?
No, I never foresaw that. I mean, it's because when I separated from the BMC, I was looking for a job that would allow me to go to different parts of the world. When I was in the BMC, you know, I was able to go to several, you know, to England every 3 months, you know, go to Brussels, go to Miami for the WTO negotiations, go to India, go to Australia, you know, well, no, England, not Australia with the BMC, but I went to Ecuador with the BMC, to, what's that other place, Suriname, you know, when I was at the BMC. So I wanted a job like that where you could visit the rest of the world, you know, see development, you know. And when I saw the opening or the requests for proposals for the position of manager of the team, and then I became CEO, you know, that fit in very well with my mission.
You saw the Windsor Park when it was called Cow Tongue?
Yes, I did.
Give us a little.
Well, as I said earlier, it was Guinea. It was called originally Guinea grass space, and then people started tying cows there, so it became Cow Tongue. It was a pasture with a lot of Roso reeds, grass, and people tied things there. Then they started cleaning it up. They established the hospital where the government ministries is, the old ministry. And then I remember they had a football field and cricket field and a pitch as part of the football field. And then there was a large portion from the end of the football field going to the river. Then later on they built the pavilions down in that section down there. And, but most of the cricket used to be at the gardens. So they opened up Windsor Park as an additional ground. And it became the feature ground. I remember in 1958 that we had inter-school games. And Dominica played against, I forget it was Grenada. And 2 batsmen distinguished themselves. One was a Bell from Girondelle, he made 100. And then Baba Dyer made 100. But as a young boy, it was like a joke that Baba Dyer allegedly made 100 if 81 singles. So even up to now, I pull his leg and tell him, boy, Babs, you made 81 singles in your 100. So you would tell me, but nonetheless, I scored 100.
I like the fact that you said it's alleged.
Yes.
That you had 81 singles.
He told me, no, that wasn't true. It wasn't 81, but the talk of the time was that he scored 100 if 81 singles.
Were they describing how slow that 100 was?
Yes, slow and steady.
so guys forgot, guys went and sleep.
That's right.
And Babs Dyer is still batting there.
Yeah.
So when fellas get up, they start to check.
No, but it was, on analysis, it was very good, because it was like teamwork. Bell scored much faster, but Baba Dyer stayed there with him. But in those days, as a young boy going grammar school, if you're a batsman, the only thing you're thinking about is about the strokes you can play, It has nothing called defense and so on, It's only a few mature cricketers had defense and could bat for a long time, but everything was about stroke play. So when fellas saw, I don't know if you, Adams, you remember a fella called Kelly Shillingford from Pottersville?
Yeah, I remember him.
Kelly Shillingford played for Dominica and batted for a whole day and scored 5 runs.
That's true.
Yvonne Amos said that you are a storyteller. That one comes.
Yes, that's true.
That is true.
Kelly Shillingford.
In those days, the role was an opener to take the shine of the new ball. Fellas were not expected to play strokes and all that.
Do you know where Kelly Shillingford lived?
Somewhere in Pottersville.
Where Melissa's mother is from, father. Just on the opposite side.
Yes, right. By Canal Lane.
By Canal Lane.
Yes.
By Cecil in the bush.
Yes, in the bush.
Yeah, in
there.
the bush there, man.
Yes, that's where Kelly was from.
Kelly was, man.
Yeah.
Redskin fella, short.
Redskin fella.
Free.
He used to always be walking around with a poo-poo marshal.
What?
Yeah.
Whole day.
Yeah.
He bat whole day and scored 5 runs as an opener. And he was a certainty on the team just because of that.
Yeah.
That was the batting philosophy of the day.
You occupy the
These
crease.
fellas batting 3 and 4 and 5 were the stroke makers.
Yeah.
But you had to block and block.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
No, Gregory, I want to go back a little bit in time. Where Roso had a few business houses. Can you help us to identify some of the business houses and where they were?
Okay,
Major
on the
ones.
Bay front, you had C.G. Phillip.
Was it C.G. Phillip was Carlton Phillip's father?
Yes. C.G. Phillip. He was my neighbor. I lived in Fort Lynn, and he was next door to me on Church Street. Right? You had C.G. Phillip. Then you had New Store. Was owned by A.C. Shillingford. Then you had what's her name? Sylvia Johnson. Then you had Marine Club. Then Coppell.
Where was Marine Club? Where's Marine Club?
Where Marine Club was where Whitchurch is. Right? Then which are the other businesses now? Well, you had the banks, Royal Bank, Barclays Bank.
Penny Bank by any chance?
Yes, Penny Bank, Cooperative Bank. Yeah, that was run by Eugene Child's father. Then you had Barons. For Christmas, you always used to go by Barons and buy Noga. Then you had a number of other shops on Marikaram. Then
If you can help us, give us the location so that people can get.
That's Old Street. Marikaram was Old Street, right? Then Barons was Old Street, the end of Old Street, opposite tobacco factory. Then CB's. CB's was known for books and cards.
Mix,
and
comic book.
Comic books.
Yes,
Yeah,
Archie
man.
Boy.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
And he used to sell
Mills and Boons?
Bills and Boons. I remember convent girls used to go to buy CB and read a whole Mills and Boons in their spare time, and not buy the Mills and Boons. Then you had then who else?
Gabriel Cash and Carry.
Gabriel Cash and Carry. Then you had Roy opposite Orchard there.
Yes.
Roy had a business there.
Mm-hmm.
Then Astafans had a business. And before Astafans went there, the Hackshaws used to live in that property. The Hackshaws are from St. Lucia. They had that property there.
Someone is saying that they thought that the Marine Club was near Fort Folkole next to the Governor Club.
No. They had my father and a set of other fellas. They had a club at Folkole on the beach there. I forget the name of the club, but they used to have a club there. But Marine Club was
Green Lantern was the club. Green Lantern in Folkole.
No, I don't know. No, it wasn't Green
Dance.
Lantern. It was a special.
I remember the place by
Yeah.
the tambourine tree there.
Yeah, by the tambourine tree there. It was a house, a small house. But
And
it
the
was
governor
like
used to always go there, right? And
Yes,
relax.
that's right.
Right.
Zon Latig. In this time, he used to go there.
You remember that fella? That's where Deloney used to go. The club. They had a club where Deloney.
Deloney used to work at Whitchurch?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Sparrow Winston.
Yes.
Those boys.
Yes. All of them had a club. They put together and had a club.
No. What about Calabash?
Yes, Calabash was the Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then what about Batter? You had
Batter,
Batter.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Where
then you
Jubilees
had,
now.
you had Megan Wilson, who was the common law wife for Newton Shillingford. You know where, what's his name used to be there? Robin.
Robbing with the pharmacist.
No, not the pharmacist. Robin used to sell shoes and clothes and so on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's between, then you had Edwards was a hardware store at the corner there.
Yes, the big clock. We say the big clock.
Right, by the clock.
When we say
yeah.
Edwards, people didn't know him as Edwards. In my time, we just say the big clock.
The big clock, right.
Yes.
No, but the big clock had belonged to Ivan Shillingford.
Mm-hmm.
He's
By the market.
right, the lady he had children with used
Fat,
to operate.
fat duck lady.
Yes, she used to operate a grocery shop there.
Mm-hmm.
Then where else now?
Then we remember the cinema by the new market.
Yes, of course. That I went to cinema there. You had to you bought your ticket downstairs, and it was a wooden building, and you walk up. It had like landings all around, and then you if you went to house, you walked up to the first landing, and then you went in. I went to cinema there. By KFC there. Or where what is it?
By the
ShopRite.
Gregory went to cinema in that place there.
Yes, I went to cinema there as a little boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about Hotel Paz?
Paz was close to where my Marine Club, like where Whitchurch was.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Do you remember Kaima Bozo?
No, where was that?
Where they have the just at the back of the Hillsborough factory.
No, I
There
don't
was a
remember
big
that.
building.
What about Dibs? You remember Dibs?
Yes,
I
yes,
did.
Dibs. Yeah,
Dibs
man, I
selling
remember Dibs.
wholesale
Yeah.
flour.
Yes.
Flour, I
Yes.
I remember Dibs.
Coronation Hall.
Yeah, Coronation Hall, yeah.
Yes. That's where AC Shillingford is,
It's
right?
Shillingford is,
Yes.
yeah.
Upstairs.
That's where dances, all dances for at Christmas and New Year's.
Right.
You have to have dances there
And,
for
and, as,
carnival.
and as you said about dances, the old grotto.
The grotto, of
Grotto.
course. Yeah.
Where the present how you call it?
Infirmary.
Infirmary.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
Yeah.
But grotto was on the Queen Mary Street side,
Right.
Yes, that's where it is. We now say Independence Street.
Independence
Yeah,
Street.
that's
right.
where it was. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And at that time, you remember who the security was? Let me see if you remember.
At grotto?
Mm-hmm.
No.
How known a man?
Who was it?
Desmond Blanchard.
Really?
Yes, really.
Oh, you mean when they had dances when
Yes.
when swinging stars had dances?
Mhm. Desmond Blanchard
Yes, yes.
was the chief officer on duty
yes,
in those
yes.
days.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
and so it is.
But you know what I remember? When we used to go to grammar school, we used to go by Miss Olive to buy brick, to buy recess.
Right.
Then you had by Miss Pooney,
Yes.
you go and buy sandwiches.
Your bread and buncha.
Then you had Mondesi used to sell sandwiches too.
What about Carmichael?
I don't remember where Carmichael was.
I think Pottersville. Someone told me. And what about Pee Wee?
Pee Wee, yeah man.
Yeah.
But there's a joke about Pee Wee, right?
What is that?
We were going to Grenada in 1960. So my mother arranged for me to go with grammar school, inter-school tournament. And I was going with grammar school, Dominica Grammar School. And we had to go on a boat called Christine C. And Christine C had a sister boat, Michael David. It was owned by a guy from Grenada. So my mother and father dropping me down, they stopped by Pee Wee and they bought a 50-cent ice cream. And that was a big ice cream, you know, in them days.
Yes, yes.
You got about a liter and a half of ice cream, right? So when I went on the boat and I waved goodbye to my mother, I started to eat my ice cream. So Henry Elwin, sharp, approached me and he said, "Boy, Gregory, boy, it's not a good idea, you know, to eat ice cream because you will get sick." I say, "So what to do with the ice cream?" He said, "Give it to me."
I can't believe you were stupid enough to give it to
So
him.
sharp ate the ice cream. Before we reached to Freya, and Scott said, "Sharp start to puke."
Boy, that is something else.
So, and all Sharp saying, "Boy, I cannot sail." Boy, I'm a good sportsman. I'll make Dominica go for cricket and football. And everybody laughing at him and telling him, "But you're going to take Gregory ice cream." Yeah.
But there was some prominent business people, you know, in Roso. I mean, Roso Central, as we normally call it in those days. That some people may not even know of, you know. And some of them are still around.
Yeah.
But when you were growing up, was J.E. Nassif.
Of course. Yeah, man. Yeah, you had the Nassif. Is where the ruins are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They had their business downstairs.
They have the cloth business there.
Their
right?
cloth business there. And then they had their rum business down
by
next-
the river bank.
By the river bank there at the bottom by KFC there. Yeah.
Where there's no Best Buy.
Best Buy, that's
The
right.
building of Best Buy.
Best Buy. Yeah. And they even have a small shop close by Best Buy there. They still sell liquor there. Is that part of The Nassif business, or that's another company?
No, I think it's still Nassif business. I think.
Yes, yeah. When you go to buy rum by the gallon, that's where you buy it.
No, as we're coming on to the end, it's already 10:45,
Yeah.
quarter to 11.
Mm-hmm.
We have next just about another 10 minutes.
Yes.
I'm sure you are able to tell us about some of the things that you would have seen growing up that has changed.
Well, I saw Carnival change because, remember, as I told you, Eric was my godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric, Loverty, James, and Eddie Mate were in their thing, their Sensei, right? And I was right next, opposite Simsy when the fire broke out. And I saw Eddie hold on to that metal support for the veranda, right? And try to roll on the wall to put the fire out. And then I saw Eric in the gutter on the other side by Simsy on fire, and James was in the gutter. I saw them grab Eric and bring him upstairs in Mr. Sim's bed and try to take out the sensei from him. I went up there because I was attached to him. He was my godfather, you know. And that affected me, man. And soon after that, you know, Carnival changed, because Carnival used to be a time when you had your mass face. You know, you play, young boys always had a sensei. We used to make a sensei, not necessarily with rope, but with cut up cloth. And the feature is that you always had something like a butu or your cricket bat or your tennis racket as something to hold on to, like a weapon or something to defend yourself when a fight break out. I saw bands from Pottersville clash with bands from Roso and Newtown. And then Carnival changed after that. You know, your rite of passage in Carnival was to be in the band movie section, you know, in growing up. When you hear fellas talking in grammar school, they're all looking forward to being in the band movie. You know, and today, you know, you had no mask. You cannot cover your face with anything again. And the mask is now a lot tamer.
Right.
know.
No, that band movie, Gregory, you had your butu or you had your cockbat racket, you
That's
clashing.
right. That's right.
What happened? Fellas,
no, well,
getting licks?
your elbow and your finger, you know, when fellas pushing you and you pushing back. And fellas, if let's say in the old days, you go and check a fella girlfriend, you used to wait for Carnival to beat you, you know, in Carnival. Yes. That was the culture in them days.
So you go and check a fella cheek.
Yeah.
He waits for you and kind of to put some lash on you.
Or if a fella have a dispute with you, he wait for Carnival to do you back.
Okay.
That was the culture.
Now, Gregory, I'm seeing on social media 212 comments, 14 shares, some 6,000 viewers.
Wow.
Wow.
I want you to communicate with these people, these viewers. Communicate with them. Tell them what you think about tonight's program.
Well, I am delighted to have come on the show because you and I spoke. You described the program to me and the scope of the program. And I excited you about the life of the Shillingford's experiences in growing up. And as I say, it's a privilege for me, Bill, to talk, have a conversation, you know, not just a lecture, a conversation with you and your viewers. And I am delighted that, you know, there's so many people following, the number of viewers and participants and the likes and so on. And I would like to say that I used to be on DBS radio quite a lot during the banana days, right? Not only did DBMC have its own program, Banana Talk, but I was also a program after I left DBMC. Hartley Mate first used to have that program, then he asked me to take it over. And we had listeners from all over the world. So it is always my pleasure and I think my duty to make a contribution through communications to our people, Dominicans or our Caribbean people or even people from all over the world, you know. I mean, I know that I'm a good storyteller. I mean, I'm known to give good jokes and I have lots of jokes. But I think that, you know, if you have a skill or a talent of communication that is essential for our people as black people, Caribbean people, and for people in the world. And, you know, it's not about being ashamed to talk about your failures. You shouldn't be ashamed to talk about your achievements, or if you have gaps in your life, you know, you should always have something interesting to say. Not the average position. You must always, you know, be able to say things that get people to think, you know, and, you know, say, wow, I didn't understand that, or that's a different view or different way to put it. That has always been me, and, you know, that is where I have strengths, and it is always my pleasure to contribute to Dominica and contribute to radio in that regard. So I am pleased and delighted and privileged to come on the program tonight, you know, and I would be prepared to do that. You know, I'm retired now, and I'm prepared to do that anytime you ask me, Cecil, but not too often, but, you know, from time to time.
I think that you have a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, especially coming back to give your contribution to Dominica. We did not speak about you and farming. You're doing quite a lot in the farming area, with citrus and also that of potatoes.
Yeah.
So I know that you have been very much involved in the contribution of Dominica's development in a positive way. You have taken some of the attributes of the Shillingfords, and you have also taken some of the attributes of your mom, making you a holistic man.
Yes.
You know, so I think listening to you tonight, a number of people are very much elated and happy that you were on. And from the comments I read, and what was very brilliant of your information is how you were able to tie the Shillingford family. So a lot of people now come to understand that if not all of the Shillingfords, but the Shillingfords are all family members.
Yes.
They are. Because you talk about how many children that the first one had, and then how many children that the sons had, and if you have to add them up, it's more than 100.
Oh, it's hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
You know? So the Shillingfords have contributed quite a lot to Dominica, and I just want to say thank you for that contribution that you're able to make.
Right.
So give us your last word. Before that, let's say what...
Let me say that. I noticed that the Shillingfords have extended themselves almost to the thousands in terms of the extended family.
Yes.
But we never asked you that question. I never heard that question. How many children do you have yourself?
Oh, yes, I forgot to ask.
I have 7 children.
Do you have any outside children, or are all your children with the same tree?
What do you mean outside? There no children is outside.
The guy answered just like a Shillingford. This is a typical Shillingford
So yeah,
that no child is outside
the family. It's a Shillingford. I like the answer.
And I think from that, that's a learning for many men.
Yeah.
So no child is outside.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
all the
you
children are part of
have
you.
your children and you try to love all of them and support all of them. I mean, those that you see more will obviously get more
attention.
You know, no, I don't consider any child being outside. That's an old-time arrangement.
Yes,
I agree with you.
That's a European thing.
That's
a European thing.
Yeah.
No. Before we go, I just want to say to you that Ambrose Thomas says, I really didn't know Gregory was such an easygoing guy. Who knew? Thanks for introducing Gregory to us. The real Shillingford history was introduced tonight.
Yeah.
And another person said, Roslyn Severin McLean said that, thank you, Gregory. This was a wonderful conversation. Well said. Another person, amazing discussion. Gregory, your last words.
Well, I must admit that people who really didn't know me used to think I was unapproachable. But I never thought of myself that way. I was always a quiet person. I never opened my mouth if I didn't have information, the real information. And I was always used to look very serious. But notwithstanding, I was the guy always telling the most jokes at parties or at limes and so on. Right. So, you know, I'm happy that people now see me, if they didn't know before, that I am very approachable and that I have a wealth of information and a wealth of jokes and, you know, can be, you know, participate on the lighter side of things. You know, I'm not as good a historian as Lennox Honeychurch, but what I know I can communicate well. Thank you again, Cecil.
Very good and enjoyable program. Yeah. Great program. Thank you, Gregory. It was good listening to you. That's what many people said this evening.
Always remember, and you gave me a good joke. The same speed like Liat. Norman Shillingford.
What is the abbreviation?
The what?
What was the abbreviation?
The speed. What is it?
What was the abbreviation?
ETA. Expected time of arrival.
What is your ETA?
Right behind.
Me. The other one was the crab.
The crabs. Yeah.
Right.
How was it?
What it is, damn, the crabs are matching.
Oh, that was good.
Jam, the crabs are matching.
The crabs are matching.
And the other one was, kiss what?
Can I kiss you?
This is going to stay a long time in my head. I'm Gregory. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And I just want to say I am very elated and happy that you were able to give us such a insightful discussion here this evening. So thanks again, Gregory. All the best, and we'll see sometime in the future.
Certainly.
All right, then. That was Gregory Shillingford, who actually was here tonight, giving us some information of the Shillingford clan and the Shillingford family. And I can tell you tonight was a telling one.
It's always a better choice. My one and only station.
DBS Radio.
Hi, I am Thea Lafo-Gatson, and you're listening to DBS Radio.